Chapter 3864. When Lu Ming saw that terrifying snowy mountain, he wasn't scared at all. On the contrary, he was delighted. He flew towards the snowy mountain at an even faster speed. Hoo. Once he flew into the range of the snow mountain, he immediately felt a gust of terrifying cold wind blowing toward him. A layer of frost immediately condensed on his body. Lu Ming covered his entire body with the taboo power and barely managed to block the chill of the frost. Only a monstrous cultivator like Lu Ming could withstand such a terrifying cold wind. If it had been anyone else who had not broken through to the godly emperor layer, they would have turned into an ice sculpture. Lu Ming sensed that the deeper they went into the snowy mountain, the colder it would be. When the Blood Skull pirates arrived, their facial expressions changed drastically. That little boy wants to use the cold chi to block us. Humph. What a fool, said the bearded man while smiling coldly. He could easily see through Lu Ming's plan, but he didn't care. His cultivation level was much higher than Lu Ming's. If Lu Ming could block the cold wind, he could block it too. If he couldn't block it, Lu Ming wouldn't be able to block it before he did. When Lu Ming couldn't block the cold chi anymore, he would definitely use all his trump cards. At that time, they would be able to see if there was anything strange about the copper coffin. They continued flying towards the depths of the snowy mountain. The coldness was becoming more and more terrifying. Lu Ming had the feeling that his body was going to freeze. His blood was going to freeze. Even if he used forbidden strength, it was useless. His forbidden strength was still too weak. He couldn't block the cold chi. His body was covered in a layer of ice and he was moving slower and slower. At that moment, some of the Blood Skull pirates couldn't block it anymore. Especially those who had the strength of the third godly emperor layer and below. Their bodies were covered in a layer of ice. Their bodies, including their soul, were going to freeze. Those people had no choice but to stop because if they continued, they would die. Only those who had the strength of the fourth godly emperor layer and above could continue. Humph, I want to see what tricks you're playing. The bearded man grunted coldly. His cultivation level was incredible. He had the strength of the seventh godly emperor layer, and he had awakened many times. Violent divine power burst out continuously, forming shockwaves that rushed out in all directions, pushing away the chill in the surroundings. He was still very relaxed. I really didn't expect the coldness here to be so terrifying. Even my taboo energy can't block it. I can only rely on the Zephyr Pearl. Lu Ming thought. When he rushed into the snow mountain, he had already thought of a countermeasure, which was to rely on the Gale Pearl. The gale inside the Gale Pearl not only had destructive power, it also had a terrifyingly high temperature, which was just nice to be used to resist the chill here. Lu Ming immediately used the Great Divine Wind technique, drawing out a gust of strong wind from the Gale Pearl. Lu Ming's body seemed to be surrounded by a gust of wind. A circle of strong wind enveloped Lu Ming. The high temperature of the strong wind and the cold air of the surroundings were two extremes. When the two extremes collided, there was a dense explosion. As expected, I blocked it. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The high temperature of the strong wind blocked the cold chi. Lu Ming felt much more relaxed. He suddenly sped up. Swish, swish. Lu Ming flew over a few snowy mountains, increasing the distance between him and the curly-bearded man and the others. Oh no, that little boy's treasure can block the cold here. The curly-bearded man's expression changed drastically. He looked grim. Attack. Let's attack together. That little boy is probably bluffing. He doesn't have any trump cards, shouted the curly-bearded man. Lu Ming had the strong wind to block the cold chi. If it continued, Lu Ming would really escape. The curly-bearded man couldn't wait any longer, so he attacked immediately. Boom! The burly man with the curly beard struck out a palm. The terrifying palm force broke through the chill and blasted toward Lu Ming. At the same time, the other cultivators of the 5th and 6th Godly Emperor layer also attacked. All sorts of terrifying attacks shot towards Lu Ming. "Strong wind, come out!" shouted Lu Ming extremely loudly. He used all his strength to condense the strength of the strong wind pearl. A strong wind rose up and formed a wall behind him. Boom, boom, boom. The curly-bearded man and the others' attacks crashed onto the wall of wind and exploded. After a few breaths, the wall of wind trembled violently and broke apart. Lu Ming felt a violent force pressing down on him. His body shook violently and he was thrown backward, crashing into a snow mountain. A corner of the snow mountain was smashed into smithereens. The snow here was sealed in ice by a terrifying chill. It was even harder than divine weapons. From this, one could see how great the power was. 7th Godly Emperor layer, as expected, terrifying. Lu Ming's eyes twinkled. The curly-bearded man's attack had to break through the cold chi first. Part of his strength had already been absorbed by the cold chi, and then he had broken through the wall of wind. The remaining strength was extremely weak, but he had still managed to injure Lu Ming. If he hadn't been weakened, Lu Ming would have been crushed to pieces. Swish, Lu Ming didn't stop. He put away the coffin and flew towards the depths of the snowy mountain. Obviously, the curly-bearded man didn't care about the coffin anymore. Carrying the coffin was useless, so he put it away and sped up. That little boy has exhausted all his abilities. Chase him and avenge the young master, shouted the curly-bearded man coldly. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he charged towards Lu Ming. The distance between the two of them was getting closer. Huff, huff, huff. A cold wind whistled. Lu Ming suddenly shivered. What a terrifying cold chi. That's, Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. In front, there was a huge glacier canyon. There was a terrifying chill coming from the glacier canyon. There was actually a trace of it that passed through the gale, making Lu Ming feel a chill. It was really too shocking. But now, to Lu Ming, this was a place that he had been dreaming of. Lu Ming didn't hesitate and immediately flew towards the glacial valley. Not good. Don't let him in. The curly-bearded man roared. He also felt the terrifying chill in the glacial canyon, which made him feel apprehensive. If he allowed Lu Ming to charge out, things would not be good for him. Boom! The curly-bearded man once more attacked. A terrifying attack shot towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming used all his strength to control the strong wind bead. Another gale formed a wind wall behind him. There was a deafening sound and a gush of terrifying energy dashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming coughed up blood. His injuries had worsened. But using this energy, Lu Ming's speed suddenly increased, and he charged into the glacial valley. As soon as he dashed into the glacier canyon, Lu Ming sped forward. Around him, the wind and cold chi collided. A series of explosions rang out, blocking the cold chi. Myriad Dao Dragon Emperor. Chapter 3865. Lu Ming charged into the glacial canyon despite his injuries. He used the energy of the Gale Pearl to block the attack of the terrifying chill in the canyon. The mustached man and the others were furious and also rushed into the valley. As soon as they entered the valley, their expressions changed drastically. They were terrified. Awe! Help! A few of the weaker members of the Blood Skull pirate group let out terrified shrieks as a layer of frost covered their bodies. Furthermore, this layer of frost was spreading at an alarming speed, soon covering their entire bodies and turning into a layer of ice armor. Those people only had the strength of the 4th Godly Emperor layer, but they were frozen. They couldn't move at all. They crashed to the ground and broke into pieces. Only the cultivators of the 4th Godly Emperor layer and above managed to block the ice, but they didn't have a good time either. They released their godly strength to block the ice and then retreated. When they left the valley, they sat down cross-legged and circulated their chi to block the ice. At that moment, only the mustached man was left in the valley. Little bastard, do you think you can escape from the Blood Skull pirate crew's pursuit by hiding here? None of the people that the Blood Skull pirate crew wants to kill have ever escaped. The bearded man shouted loudly. His eyes were ferocious and murderous intent flashed continuously. You talk a lot of crap. If you're strong enough, come and kill me, said Lu Ming, smiling coldly. Then, he continued flying deeper into the valley. The mustached man was so angry that his beard was trembling. He ground his teeth and continued chasing Lu Ming. However, the deeper they went, the more terrifying the ice became. It was as if it could freeze everything, including all the particles in the universe. Even with the mustached man's cultivation level, it was difficult for him to block the ice. He had to concentrate and circulate his chi to the 10th level to block the ice. However, as a result, the burly man's speed was greatly reduced and his speed was almost the same as Lu Ming's. He could not catch up with Lu Ming at all. The two of them chased and fled. In the blink of an eye, they were thousands of miles into the glacier canyon. Whoosh, whoosh, a terrifying wind was whistling. The valley was surprisingly deep. After 1,000 li, they still hadn't reached the end. They didn't know how deep it was. Boom! Bang! Suddenly, a rumbling sound came from the ground. Then, huge figures appeared from all directions. These figures were apes. This kind of ape was snow-white and had a strong physique. It held weapons made of ice in its hands. These apes didn't seem to be afraid of the cold at all. They roared and charged towards Lu Ming and the curly-bearded man. All sorts of weapons shot towards Lu Ming and the curly-bearded man, emitting terrifying fluctuations. Before they even got close, Lu Ming could already feel a terrifying pressure. This kind of pressure was definitely not something that Lu Ming could withstand with his own strength. Lu Ming could only rely on the power of the Gale Pearl to rush out with the surging gale. As soon as the apes felt the strong wind, they seemed to be very afraid. They suddenly withdrew their attacks halfway and retreated rapidly, increasing the distance between them and Lu Ming. On the other side, a shocking battle was taking place. More than a dozen apes were attacking the curly-bearded man fiercely. The strength of these apes might be far inferior to the curly-bearded man, but in this place, the curly-bearded man's strength was greatly suppressed. On the other hand, these apes were like fish in water. They could even use the terrifying cold to launch attacks. Under this situation, the curly-bearded man was actually forced to retreat again and again. He was in a sorry state. Puff! The curly-bearded man was careless and was swept away. A huge wound appeared on his body, but no blood flowed out of this wound because it was completely frozen. Damn it, the curly-bearded man roared in his heart. He was furious. Ao. Seeing that the curly-bearded man was injured, more apes pounced on the curly-bearded man. Even the apes that were originally charging towards Lu Ming gave up on Lu Ming and charged towards the burly man with the curly beard. The curly-bearded man was even more furious. In such an environment, being besieged by so many apes, it was very likely that he would die here. Little bastard, if you have the ability, stay in this canyon for the rest of your life. Finally, the curly-bearded man let out an unwilling roar and retreated rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from Lu Ming's sight. Haha! Lu Ming sneered and let out a sigh of relief. He had finally shaken off the experts of the Blood Skull pirate group, although it was only temporary. Then, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged. A steady stream of energy flowed out of every cell in his body and healed Lu Ming's injuries. Before long, Lu Ming's injuries were completely healed. Not only that, because a trace of potential was stimulated, Lu Ming's cultivation base was also slightly stronger. This is indeed a good place to cultivate. With the coldness here, I might be able to continuously stimulate my potential. Feeling the coldness around him, Lu Ming revealed a thoughtful look. For others, this place was a dangerous place, but for him, it might not be. Perhaps it was a holy place for cultivation. He had a forbidden body and cultivated the forbidden force. As long as he still had potential, he could constantly borrow external forces to stimulate it and achieve a breakthrough. However, Lu Ming couldn't expose himself to the coldness outside. There was a limit to borrowing external forces. When the external force was too strong, he couldn't borrow it anymore and would be killed directly. Obviously, the coldness outside this canyon was enough to freeze Lu Ming to death. He could only take it one step at a time. Huff. Huff. Lu Ming manipulated the gale inside the gale pearl and opened a gap. Immediately, a gust of coldness rushed in. When this gust of coldness rushed in, Lu Ming immediately closed the defense of the gale to prevent other coldness from entering. It's so cold, even though it was just a gust of coldness that enveloped Lu Ming's body, Lu Ming felt a bone-chilling coldness. This coldness was too terrifying. It had completely penetrated into every cell, and even the particles smaller than the cells stopped moving. "Block it for me," Lu Ming roared. Energy was constantly stimulated from the 60 trillion cells in his body, covering his whole body to resist this force and prevent himself from being frozen to death. However, it was still very cold, extremely cold. Lu Ming felt as if he was in a 10,000-year-old icehouse. His teeth were chattering non-stop, and his blood seemed to be turning into ice. However, Lu Ming was able to withstand it in the end. He successfully dispelled the chill. At the same time, some of the potential in the depths of his cells was also stimulated. Lu Ming felt that his cultivation base had improved again. This kind of improvement was very shocking and could be clearly felt. "It's really effective," Lu Ming was ecstatic, his eyes shining. If he continued to cultivate like this, he had a feeling that it wouldn't be long before he could break through to the 9th level Divine Lord realm. Chapter 3866. The coldness in the glacier canyon was indeed very useful. It could greatly stimulate Lu Ming's potential. Lu Ming was overjoyed and planned to continue cultivating here. Immediately, Lu Ming controlled the gale to open up a gap and let in a trace of coldness. Then, he desperately resisted this coldness. His body was covered in a layer of ice at a speed visible to the naked eye. This ice had frozen Lu Ming's muscles, bones, blood, and internal organs. This was very dangerous. If an ordinary person was frozen like this, their life force would definitely be extinguished. They would definitely be frozen to death. However, it was also because of this that his potential could be stimulated. An endless stream of energy spread out from his cells. After this coldness was completely blocked, Lu Ming felt that his cultivation had increased a little. In the surroundings, the snow-white apes looked at each other in dismay. They looked at Lu Ming, not knowing how to deal with this foreign invader. However, they were extremely afraid of the terrifying high temperature of the gale. They could only wander around, not daring to attack Lu Ming. When Lu Ming saw this scene, he was completely relieved. He ignored these apes and continued to cultivate. Just like this, 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Boom! On this day, the aura on Lu Ming's body suddenly soared. Like smoke, it surged into the sky. 9th level Divine Lord Realm. After 10 days of cultivation, Lu Ming's cultivation went from the 8th level Divine Lord Realm to the 9th level Divine Lord Realm in one fell swoop. This speed was extremely terrifying. Lu Ming was very satisfied. After rising to the 9th level Divine Lord Realm, Lu Ming felt that the strength in his body had increased by a large amount. Even the taboo power was incomparably vigorous, and his combat strength had increased greatly. Now, facing the quasi-emperor Ling Yue, Lu Ming was confident that even if he didn't use the gravity pearl, he could easily defeat Ling Yue. Of course, the premise was that Ling Yue didn't take out the blood-stained elf King Bao. Facing the quasi-emperor Xiao Wuji, Lu Ming was confident that he could defeat him. By now, Lu Ming was confident that he had few opponents under the godly emperor of the primitive universe. I wonder if the Blood Skull pirates have retreated. Let's go take a look. Lu Ming converged his aura and waited for it to stabilize. Then, his figure flashed and flew out of the glacier canyon. Not long after, Lu Ming arrived at the periphery of the glacier canyon. As soon as they arrived at the periphery of the glacier canyon, they saw some figures sitting cross-legged outside the glacier canyon, blocking the exit of the glacier canyon. They were none other than the Blood Skull Pirates. At the same time, the Blood Skull Pirates had set up a grand spell formation outside. The Great Formation shone, forming a barrier of light that surrounded them, using it to block the coldness outside. As soon as Lu Ming appeared, a pair of cold eyes fell on Lu Ming. "Little bastard, you've finally appeared. Let's see how long you can hide," said the bearded man, his eyes filled with killing intent. His eyes looked like two sharp swords as they moved towards Lu Ming. "I just came out to see you. You're still here. Wait for me. I'm very comfortable inside. You don't need to worry about me." Lu Ming grinned. With a flash of his figure, he continued to head toward the depths of the canyon, leaving behind the infuriated burly man and the others. Since the burly man with the curly beard was still here, Lu Ming definitely could not get out now. Even though he had broken through to the next godly emperor lair, the result would still be the same if he faced the bearded man and the others. He had been able to fight against cultivators of the sixth godly emperor lair because of the Zephyr Pearl. Relying on his own strength, he couldn't fight against cultivators of the sixth godly emperor lair, let alone against cultivators of the seventh godly emperor lair. Relying on his own strength, he couldn't fight against the bearded man and the others. Therefore, even though his cultivation had broken through to the next godly emperor lair, it didn't change the situation. He could only return to the canyon and continue cultivating. "After returning to the canyon, I've broken through to the next godly emperor lair. My cells have been completely used up. I need to continue absorbing energy," thought Lu Ming. Then, he took out a bone pearl and started absorbing energy. With his current cultivation level, if he wanted to fill up all his cells, he would need to consume an incredible amount of energy. After absorbing 5 or 6 bone pearls, Lu Ming's body was finally filled up. Then, he continued cultivating. 1 day, 2 days, 10 days, 20 days, a month passed and Lu Ming still hadn't broken through to the next godly emperor lair. If he broke through to the godly emperor lair, he would become a quasi-emperor. To break through to the godly emperor lair from the godly emperor lair, his star nucleus had to turn into a star. Even when he broke through to the quasi-emperor lair, the 9 rings around his star nucleus had to fuse together. Of course, Lu Ming had a forbidden body. It was completely different from the traditional way of cultivation. He didn't have a star nucleus or a star ring. He judged his cultivation base based on the energy of the taboo energy. Even so, the quasi-emperor layer was still a hurdle that wasn't easy to break through. When the potential in his cells was completely exhausted, his cultivation level still hadn't broken through to the quasi-emperor layer. Lu Ming could only continue to take out bone pearls and absorb energy. When the potential in his cells was full again, the bone pearls in his body had been completely used up. It really consumes a lot of energy. When I break through to the godly emperor layer, the energy consumed will be even more terrifying. It seems that I still need to store more high-energy treasures. Lu Ming thought. There were many high-energy treasures, such as divine herbs, divine elixirs, and treasures that contained majestic life essence like bone pearls. During this period, Lu Ming had also obtained a lot of divine elixirs that contained majestic energy. They could still be used for a while. Of course, divine crystals also contained energy. It was just that they were too rare and time-consuming to absorb. Therefore, they weren't Lu Ming's first choice. After storing all the potential in his cells, Lu Ming continued cultivating. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. On this day, the aura on Lu Ming's body reached its peak. Then, there was a sudden loud explosion. Following which, his aura increased rapidly. It was like a volcano erupting. It kept rising as if there was no end to it. In the end, his aura increased by 10 times before it finally stopped. Quasi-Emperor. Lu Ming whispered. He couldn't hide the joy in his eyes. After a few months of bitter cultivation, with the help of the terrifying cold outside, Lu Ming finally broke through the shackles and rushed into the Quasi-Emperor lair. His combat strength skyrocketed. Lu Ming was confident that his current combat strength was definitely at the peak of the quasi-emperor layer in the entire primitive universe. He wasn't invincible under the godly emperor layer, but he was close. For example, he could defeat Ling Yue and Xiao Wuji in one move. However, his strength was still far from that of the bearded man and the others. Lu Ming returned to the periphery of the canyon and saw the bearded man and the others still waiting there. Lu Ming could only return to the canyon and continue cultivating. Of course, he had to let go of his cultivation. It was too difficult to break through to the godly emperor layer. Book Guesthouse Reading Website. Chapter 3867. It was difficult to break through to the Divine Emperor realm in a short period of time. Even with the terrifying chill, it would take a long time. In addition, he did not have many resources left. Breaking through to the Divine Emperor realm required a huge amount of resources. Although he still had some resources, they might not be enough for him to break through to the Divine Emperor realm. Therefore, he could take his time to break through to the Divine Emperor realm. Lu Ming planned to cultivate secret skills first. 2 of the 3,000 ancient secret skills and hundreds of ordinary secret skills. Back then, he had bought 150 ordinary secret arts from Xue Ming's subordinates and obtained hundreds of secret arts from the Life Soul Heavenly Court. He had not had time to cultivate so many secret skills recently. Now that he was trapped here, it was a good time to cultivate. Lu Ming controlled the strong wind and shrouded himself in it. He sat cross-legged and was not affected by the chill outside. He focused on comprehending secret skills. Right now, Lu Ming was very familiar with all kinds of secret skills. Moreover, as his cultivation level deepened, the taboo power constantly improved his comprehension ability. The speed at which he comprehended these ordinary secret skills was astonishing. It only took him a few hours to comprehend a secret technique. He could comprehend several secret skills in a day and turn them into secret skill runes and integrate them into his cells. In the blink of an eye, more than 4 months had passed. He had completely mastered hundreds of secret skills. Right now, Lu Ming had mastered a total of 1,000 types of secret skills. Yes, exactly 1,000. These secret skills were all-encompassing and there were all kinds of secret skills. As long as he thought about it, they would burst out like a storm. After mastering these secret skills, Lu Ming began to focus on 2 ancient secret skills, the Great Shatter Art and the Great God Wind Art. The 3,000 ancient secret skills were not weaker than the origin secret skills. Especially for geniuses with high comprehension, they could improve rapidly. The power of the early stage was stronger than the origin secret skills. They were the most suitable secret skills for Lu Ming. Lu Ming naturally had to spend more effort on them. Lu Ming planned to cultivate the Great Shatter Art first. The Great Shatter Art was only 1 step away from mastering it. Once mastering it, its power would surge and be on par with the Great God Wind Art. Comprehending it alone is still too slow. Oh right, those apes. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up as he swept his gaze towards the apes. At first, those apes surrounded Lu Ming, but after a few months, they seemed to have lost their patience. Some had already left, and only 5 or 6 were still surrounding Lu Ming. Lu Ming planned to use these apes as opponents to cultivate the ancient secret technique. Whoosh! Lu Ming walked towards one of the apes. That ape immediately stared at Lu Ming cautiously, mainly because it was afraid of Lai Feng. However, in the next moment, Lu Ming directly opened up half of the area covered by the gale, allowing the ape to directly face Lu Ming. Come on! Lu Ming muttered. Seeing that Lai Feng had retreated half of the gale, the ape's eyes were filled with ferocious killing intent. It hesitated for a moment before roaring and taking a heavy step forward. Its huge body pounced towards Lu Ming, bringing with it a whistling cold wind. The ape held a snow-white popsicle in its hand and whipped it towards Lu Ming. The cold wind whistled and the popsicle exploded the space. The terrifying chill seemed to be about to freeze everything. 6 times combat strength, Great Shatter Art, Lu Ming growled and directly activated the battle symbol art to increase his combat strength by 6 times. Of course, he couldn't instantly activate the battle symbol art to increase his combat strength by 6 times. In fact, he had been trying to activate it for a long time before he succeeded. With the cultivation of a quasi-emperor, the battle symbol art could increase his combat strength by 6 times, filling his body with endless power. He activated the Great Shatter art and struck out with his palm. Clang! Lu Ming's palm hit the popsicle. Immediately, he felt a terrifying chill and terrifying force rushing towards him, wanting to tear him apart and explode him. "Break for me!" shouted Lu Ming furiously. A terrifying strength burst out. The Great Shatter art was unceasingly released, as if it wanted to destroy everything. Under the attack of the Great Shatter art, the chill was unceasingly being torn apart. Even the terrifying force was being torn apart. Boom! Lu Ming's body retreated rapidly. He only stopped when he was hundreds of miles away. His body was already covered with a layer of ice. His hands were covered with cracks and blood was flowing out. The ape was also pushed back, but it wasn't as far as Lu Ming. Lu Ming was at a complete disadvantage in this move. With his current strength, he could easily kill cultivators of the 3rd godly emperor layer, but he still wasn't a match for the ape. Roar! The ape was even more furious after being pushed back. It roared furiously and continued attacking Lu Ming. The popsicle was like a mountain moving towards Lu Ming. Gravity pearls. Lu Ming's heart stirred and 3 gravity pearls flew out. The terrifying gravity shrouded the ape. Enveloped by the gravity, the ape's body trembled slightly. Clearly, it was greatly affected. After that, Lu Ming also rushed over and used the Great Shatter art. He threw a punch at the ape. Boom! Another heaven-shocking explosion sounded. This time, the 2 sides were evenly matched, both retreating 100 li. "It's working." "Come again," Lu Ming's eyes twinkled. He looked excited. As expected, the best way to practice a secret skill was to fight. Lu Ming used his full strength to exchange a few blows with the ape. He had the feeling that he had a new understanding of the Great Shatter art. The ape was even crazier. It roared and attacked Lu Ming. The 2 of them started fighting intensely. There were other apes on the side who also wanted to attack Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming controlled the gale and swept it towards the apes. They were scared and kept retreating. In this way, Lu Ming and the ape exchanged a few hundred blows. The ape was emitting white qi. It was exhausted and had to retreat. Lu Ming also took the opportunity to rest. After Lu Ming had a good rest, he removed Lai Feng and looked for other monkeys to fight. In this way, Lu Ming fought with the ape for 3 days. On the 4th day, bang! The void trembled violently as a snow-white ape retreated 200 miles away in a frenzy. Lu Ming only retreated a few dozen li. Lu Ming finally gained the upper hand. "I finally learned the Great Shatter art," Lu Ming was delighted. Originally, he had already practiced the Great Shatter art to a certain extent and was not far from the beginner level. After 3 days of continuous fighting, he finally practiced the Great Shatter art to the beginner level. He made the Great Shatter art reach the same level as the Great Divine Wind art. Its power soared. "Kill!" Lu Ming shouted and continued to attack the ape. He kept throwing out his palms. Each of his palms had the power of the Great Shatter art. Every time he threw out a palm, the space shook violently and cracks like a spider web appeared. The ape tried its best to resist, but it could no longer hold on. It kept retreating, and cracks appeared on the popsicle in its hand. Chapter 3868. Lu Ming forced an ape to keep retreating. It only had the strength to resist and had no strength to fight back. Asterisk roar, asterisk on the side, several other apes kept roaring and jumping, trying to attack Lu Ming, but unfortunately, they were all blocked by the gale. "Want to attack? Well, let 2 more come in." Lu Ming's heart moved and he retracted the range of the gale a little. Roar. Immediately, 2 apes roared and dashed toward Lu Ming. Together with the one in front, there were a total of 3 apes. The 3 snow-white apes attacked Lu Ming at the same time with different attacks. Come on, great divine wind technique, great shattering technique, Lu Ming bellowed and used the 2 ancient mystic skills. His whole body was wrapped in a strange hurricane, and inside it, there was the shattering power of the great shattering spell. Swish. Swish. Lu Ming blasted out 3 palm prints in a row towards the 3 apes. There was a big explosion in this area and the void was constantly collapsing. 1 man and 3 apes engaged in a fierce confrontation. As soon as the confrontation began, Lu Ming fell into a disadvantage and was no match for the 3 apes. The main thing was that one of the apes was stronger and stronger, forcing Lu Ming to keep retreating. Good, this is interesting, this is stressful. Lu Ming was not surprised but happy. Instead, he was even more excited. Boom. His body shook and all his cells trembled. There were hundreds of offensive secret techniques that all burst out. Lu Ming's body emitted a bright light, which had a variety of colors. There were hundreds of colors in total, which was caused by hundreds of secret techniques. There were no outsiders here. Lu Ming had no scruples and let these secret techniques manifest. There were roars of 9 dragons, bursts of sword chi, dancing saber light, roars of tigers, all kinds of secret techniques blasted towards the 3 apes. At the same time, Lu Ming launched the main attack with the Great Shattering Technique and Great Divine Wind Technique. Lu Ming could be said to have used all his means to block the attacks of the 3 apes, but he was still at a disadvantage. However, only pressure could stimulate one's potential. Lu Ming enjoyed this kind of battle very much. After hundreds of battles, the 3 apes were tired and retreated. Lu Ming also took the opportunity to rest. After a while, he continued to fight. In this fierce confrontation, not only were the 2 ancient secret techniques tempered, but even other ordinary secret techniques were also tempered and become stronger. For the rest of the time, Lu Ming cultivated with peace of mind. In the beginning, Lu Ming was no match for the 3 apes. However, as time passed, he was gradually able to block the attacks of the 3 apes. A month later, Lu Ming was already able to fight to a draw with the 3 apes. After that, Lu Ming continued to use the Great Divine Wind technique to fight against the 5 apes. Time flew, half a year passed quickly. Lu Ming had been in the Glacial Valley for a year. After that period of cultivation, Lu Ming's mastery of the Great Divine Wind technique and the Great Shattering technique had increased by a lot. As his mastery increased, his strength also increased. Lu Ming's overall fighting strength had also increased. Now, Lu Ming didn't know how strong he could be if he used his full strength. He also didn't know what level of godly emperor he could defeat. But Lu Ming was sure that he could easily kill ordinary cultivators of the 3rd godly emperor layer. It was worth mentioning that Chiu had evolved again. He had broken through to the 3rd godly emperor layer and could kill cultivators of the 5th godly emperor layer. That gave Lu Ming more confidence. I wonder if the Blood Skull Pirates are still here. With my current strength, I should be able to break through, thought Lu Ming. Of course, he couldn't defeat cultivators of the 6th or 7th godly emperor layer. But during this period of time, his Great Divine Wind technique had improved. He could summon even stronger gales from the Great Divine Wind Pearl. He had a better chance of defeating the curly-bearded big man. Even if he couldn't kill the curly-bearded big man, he could seize the opportunity to escape. Now, they had been in Bing Xian's life spirit palace for a year. He had been trapped there for a long time. How was he doing? Lu Ming didn't want to stay there any longer. Lu Ming used the Great Divine Wind Pearl to protect himself and returned to the periphery of the valley. Outside the valley, the Blood Skull Pirates were still in the Grand Spell formation. Those people are really stubborn. Lu Ming was speechless. Little bastard, let's see how long you can stay here. I have plenty of time to waste with you. When the curly-bearded big man saw Lu Ming, he looked even more furious than before. "Humph, I'm younger than you, so it's not certain who has more time. Let's just waste time then," said Lu Ming angrily. But this time, Lu Ming didn't retreat. He looked around, trying to find an opportunity to escape. Peng peng, suddenly, Lu Ming took a step forward and walked out of the glacier canyon. The curly-bearded big man and the others were excited. "He can't stay here any longer. He wants to break through. Seal him," said the curly-bearded big man to the others telepathically. The members of the Blood Skull Pirates split into a few rows. Powerful auras spread out from them, interweaving with each other as they prepared to launch a thunderous attack. They didn't dare be careless because they knew how strong the Great Divine Wind Pearl was. Phew, Lu Ming held the Great Divine Wind Pearl in his hand and used the Great Divine Wind technique to summon the Great Divine Wind Pearl's strength. Immediately, a strong wind whistled and turned into a huge tornado. It swept in all directions towards the Blood Skull Pirates. "Break!" shouted the bearded man furiously. He released his chi of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. He raised his hands and a few pitch-black skeletal claws moved towards the tornado. Boom! The two attacks collided with each other, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. The earth quaked and the sky began to crumble. In the next moment, the curly-bearded big man's expression changed drastically. Originally, he thought that this move would be enough to defeat Lu Ming's Great Divine Wind Pearl. A year ago, he had easily defeated Lu Ming's Great Divine Wind Pearl. But this time, he didn't manage to break it. It was blocked. "You blocked it. Good." Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He wasn't sure if the Great Divine Wind Pearl could block the curly-bearded big man's attack. But now, he was relieved. Then, his eyes were filled with killing intent. He just wanted to rush out and leave, but now, he changed his mind. If he didn't make the Blood Skull Pirates pay a painful price, how could he be willing to leave? With a thought, Qiuqiu turned into an armor and covered Lu Ming's body. Afterward, Lu Ming activated the Great Divine Wind technique with all his might. Another gust of strong wind was drawn out from the Gale Pearl. Phew, a strong gale whizzed by, tearing space apart as if it were tofu. The violent gale swept towards the Blood Skull Pirates at an astonishing speed. Chapter 3869. Lai Feng's speed was too fast, like lightning. Unable to dodge in time, the Blood Skull Pirates were enveloped by the gale. Immediately, screams of agony could be heard. To be honest, given Lu Ming's current level of mastery of the Great Godly Wind skill, the gale drawn out from the Gale Pearl was too powerful. Those below the 6th level of the Divine Emperor realm could not resist it at all. Once they were enveloped by it, they would die. The pirates of the Blood Skull Pirates who had the strength of the 6th Godly Emperor layer were cut into pieces. Only 3 cultivators of the 6th Godly Emperor layer didn't die, but they were severely injured. Their bodies were tattered and covered with wounds. They were bleeding and smelled like barbecued meat. All of a sudden, there were only 4 people left in the Blood Skull gang. Kill. Having gained the upper hand in one move, Lu Ming would not give his opponent a chance to catch his breath. Qiuqiu condensed a silver spear. Lu Ming grabbed the silver spear and thrust it towards a cultivator of the 6th Godly Emperor layer. The cultivator of the 6th Godly Emperor layer had been severely injured by the Zephyr Gale. He had less than 10% of his strength left. He shouted furiously and released an explosive attack to block the Moonlight Spear. However, he didn't have much strength left. Although he was able to block a portion of the Moonlight Spear's power, he wasn't able to block all of it. Finally, a ray of Moonlight Spear light pierced through this person's body. Great Divine Wind Art, Great Shattering Art. Lu Ming's left hand blasted out continuously as he executed 2 ancient secret techniques. A wave of destructive energy rushed towards the other party. With injuries on top of injuries, the other party was already incomparably dispirited. How could he still block Lu Ming's attack? The destructive energy swept over, and that person let out an unwilling scream. His body was torn apart, and he died on the spot. A cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer had been killed. The other 2 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer were terrified and retreated. Damn it, the curly-bearded man roared. His murderous intent had reached its peak. The raging flames of anger seemed to want to burn his body. He attacked crazily and finally broke through the tornado formed by the strong wind. Then, he charged towards Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming had been waiting for him. As soon as the curly-bearded man pounced over, Lu Ming immediately controlled the great divine wind technique and drew out a powerful gale from the gale pearl, sweeping towards the curly-bearded man. The energy inside the gale bead was practically limitless. The existence that had left behind the gale pearl was too terrifying. The gale that had been stirred up had destroyed an entire galaxy, turning it into a land of gale that would not dissipate even after countless years. Therefore, the energy inside the gale bead was simply too abundant. What Lu Ming was drawing out was just a drop in the ocean. Lu Ming felt that if he could draw out the energy inside the gale pearl, he could probably destroy an entire galaxy in an instant. Therefore, there was no need to worry that there would not be enough gale in the gale pearl. A strong gale swept out and blocked the curly-bearded man. Lu Ming attacked the remaining 2 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer. The 2 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer were severely injured. In addition, the coldness here was extremely shocking. Although it wasn't as shocking as the glacial canyon, it still had a great impact on them. This greatly reduced their speed. Lu Ming wasn't affected by the cold, and with his great godly wind technique, he was extremely fast. He caught up with the 2 cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer and attacked them like a storm. The attack of the silver spear that Qiuqiu had transformed into, as well as Lu Ming's own attack, was fatal to the 2 severely injured members of the Blood Skull pirate team. Although the 2 of them tried their best to resist, the outcome was already determined. Another cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer was killed. Ah, little bastard, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to grind your bones to dust. The curly-bearded man was incomparably furious. He kept on attacking, but unfortunately, when he broke through the gale, Lu Ming rewarded him with another gale, preventing him from charging over. Lu Ming continued attacking the last cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer. Very quickly, the last cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer followed in the footsteps of the others. He was killed by Lu Ming. That way, only the curly-bearded man was left of the Blood Skull pirate group. The curly-bearded man's eyes were wide open. His hair and beard stood on end. His hands had turned pitch black like ink, emitting a deep and serene aura. He continuously attacked with terrifying power. Every time it blasted out, a huge explosion would occur in the void. Even though Lu Ming's gale was extremely strong, the curly-bearded man could break it in a few attacks. Die! Shouted the curly-bearded man furiously. He threw a punch at the gale, which shook and dispersed. Then, a gigantic hand moved towards Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming still drew out a wisp of energy from the gale pearl to block the pitch-black handprint. You're the only one left, Lu Ming stared at the curly-bearded man. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He didn't want to leave like that. He wanted to see if he could kill the curly-bearded man as well. Whoosh whoosh, Lu Ming held the gale pearl in his hand, and a strong gale filled the air as he moved towards the curly-bearded man. You want to kill me? You're overestimating yourself. Brutal hand! Shouted the curly-bearded man furiously. He stretched out his hand, and the space around him broke apart like tofu. Bang bang bang! The strong gale collided with the curly-bearded man's hand. In the blink of an eye, they had collided a few hundred times. Finally, the gale was broken. Unfortunately, it's not strong enough. I can't injure him fatally, sighed Lu Ming. The gale he had released wasn't strong enough. Even though it could block the curly-bearded man's attack, it couldn't threaten his life. Let's see how much strength you can release. When you run out of strength, you'll die. roared the curly-bearded man. He did not believe that the power of the Gale Pearl in Lu Ming's hands was limitless. Once the power of the Gale Pearl was depleted, he would crush Lu Ming into ashes to vent his anger. This time, he had suffered a great loss. In order to deal with Lu Ming, he had wasted so much time, and all of his men had been killed by Lu Ming. If the leader of the Blood Skull Pirates found out about this, he would definitely be punished. Only by killing Lu Ming could he make up for his mistakes. Therefore, he had never been more eager to kill Lu Ming. Kill. Kill. The curly-bearded man kept attacking, trying to deplete the energy of the Gale Pearl as soon as possible. However, the energy of the Gale Pearl was endless. Lu Ming kept releasing energy. Moreover, Lu Ming took the opportunity to launch his own attack. The moonlight spear light blasted towards the curly-bearded man, carrying the energy of the great god Wind Art and the great shattering art. Unfortunately, the curly-bearded man defeated Lu Ming's attack with a single palm. Chapter 3870. Lu Ming's own strength, even with Qiuqiu, was still a far cry from the curly-bearded man. Looks like I can't kill this guy. Lu Ming sighed in his heart and began to think about how to evacuate. Since he couldn't kill this fellow, there was no point in dragging it out. He had been in Bing Xian's Life Spirit Hall for a year and hadn't gotten anything. He couldn't let others get it. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. Whoosh! From outside the snowy mountain, an arrow flew rapidly towards the bearded man. Fast, terrifyingly fast. It was powerful, terrifyingly powerful. Almost instantly, he closed in on the curly-bearded man. The bearded man's expression changed drastically because he felt a fatal danger from that arrow. It was a danger that could threaten his life. At the critical moment, the bearded man let out a roar. His pitch-black palm suddenly slapped out at a strange angle towards the arrow. Clang! It was as if two pieces of metal had collided with each other, causing energy ripples to spread out in all directions. Lu Ming could clearly see that the arrow was constantly vibrating and emitting a terrifying penetrative power. Puff! In the end, the curly-bearded man let out a muffled groan and retreated rapidly. His pitch-black palm had actually been pierced through, and pitch-black blood flowed out. Furthermore, the arrows did not stop. They continued to land on his body, piercing through his body. Ah! The bearded man roared like a wounded lion, staring in the direction outside the snow mountain. In that direction, a figure was walking through the air. The person who came had a graceful figure and a peerless elegance. If it wasn't Ling Yue, who else could it be? Ling Yue's entire body was enveloped by a green divine light. Her powerful aura opened up a part of the world, making Lu Ming feel as if a star was hanging in the air. Divine Emperor. Lu Ming's pupils shrank as he muttered. That's right, Ling Yue's cultivation had already completely reached the Divine Emperor realm. Lu Ming definitely wouldn't sense it wrongly. Unexpectedly, after a year of not seeing each other, Ling Yue had already made a major breakthrough. It had to be known that it was extremely difficult for a quasi-emperor to break through to the Divine Emperor realm. Many peerless geniuses were trapped at this step for an unknown period of time. As for Ling Yue, she had already broken through after disappearing for a year. It seemed that Ling Yue must have had a fortuitous encounter this year. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to do it so quickly. For a monstrous genius like Ling Yue, once she stepped into the Divine Emperor realm, her battle prowess would soar crazily. Perhaps her current combat strength was already above Lu Ming's. Although Lu Ming had gone from the 8th level of the Divine Lord realm to the Quasi-Emperor realm, which was an increase of 2 levels, these 2 levels were just small levels. But from the Quasi-Emperor realm to the Divine Emperor realm was an increase of a major realm. The advancement of a major realm was far from being comparable to the advancement of a minor realm. Ling Yue held a bloody battle bow in her hand. That arrow just now was shot by Ling Yue with the Elven King's bow that was stained with blood. Although Ling Yue had broken through to the Divine Emperor stage and her battle prowess had soared, it was still impossible for her to injure the bearded man. She needed to use the Elf King Bao. However, after breaking through to the Divine Emperor realm, it was much easier for her to control the Elven King Bao. Mu Yun, let's work together and kill this person. Ling Yue's voice sounded in Lu Ming's ears. All right, Lu Ming replied without thinking. Then, it was a violent attack. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Lu Ming used the Great Divine Wind technique with all his might. From the Gale Pearl, a powerful gale whistled out and swept towards the bearded man. Following that, the 3 gravity orbs also flew out, and the powerful gravity pressed down. Although with Lu Ming's current cultivation, controlling the 3 gravity orbs wouldn't have much of an effect on the bearded man, but it would still affect him a little, right? Sensing the killing intent of Lu Ming and Ling Yue, the bearded man became even more furious. You 2 little bastards want to kill me? Dream on. Tyrannical hand, shatter the world. The bearded man roared crazily. His body was enveloped by a layer of black light. His 2 claws became even darker as they continuously clawed out, creating a terrifying wave of strength chi that fought against the gale. Crackling sounds of explosions could be heard in the air. Elven King's arrow. Ling Yue shouted. The aura on her body was pushed to the limit, and a towering tree appeared. This towering tree contained an immeasurable amount of life essence, and all of it was injected into Ling Yue's body. In an instant, Ling Yue's aura reached its peak. She drew her bow and knocked an arrow. An emerald green arrow condensed and shattered the void as it shot towards the curly bearded man's face. In the past, Ling Yue could only shoot 1 arrow with the Elven King's bow, and that was her limit. But now, Ling Yue could not only shoot 1 arrow, but it was even more powerful. The bearded man's expression was extremely solemn as he continuously struck out with his palms. However, he was unable to block it at all. His palms were violently trembling, and on his palms, there were at least dozens of layers of black light that were instantly pierced through by the arrow. Puff! This time, both of the bearded man's palms were pierced through. The arrow pierced through the space between his eyebrows. The bearded man's expression changed drastically. At the critical moment, he twisted his body slightly and avoided the fatal blow. The arrow pierced through his neck, leaving behind a bloody hole that penetrated from front to back. If it was an ordinary person, they would definitely die after receiving such an attack. However, for a Divine Emperor realm expert, such an injury was nothing at all. With the circulation of his divine power, he would quickly recover. However, in that instant, he would still be greatly affected. Now is the time. How could Lu Ming miss such an opportunity? He activated the Zephyr Pearl with all his might. Whoosh! A scorching gale swept out, enveloping the bearded man within and crazily spinning and cutting him. Ah! The bearded man let out a heaven-shaking roar as he frantically resisted. However, he was enveloped by the gale and had already lost the initiative. One had to know that the gale inside the Zephyr Pearl was almost endless. Before the burly man with the curly beard dashed out, Lu Ming drew out another gust of strong wind, which swirled around the burly man with the curly beard. When the gale was slightly smaller, Lu Ming pulled out another gale. After continuously pulling out 7 or 8 gusts of wind, the bearded man finally couldn't hold on any longer. His body seemed to have been cut by countless blades, leaving behind countless wounds. Mu Yun, open a gap and let me end him completely. Ling Yue transmitted her voice. Lu Ming nodded, and in the direction of Ling Yue, he opened a small gap in the gale. The bearded man immediately rushed towards the gap, wanting to escape. However, what welcomed him was Ling Yue's arrow. Swoosh! The terrifying arrow pierced through the bearded man in an instant. A destructive power erupted and a huge explosion occurred on the bearded man's body. A huge bloody hole was blasted open and his aura was dispirited. The endless gale took the opportunity to cut towards the bearded man. No, no! The bearded man let out a desperate cry, but after a few breaths, there was no sound. Chapter 3871. The bearded man let out a few screams of despair, and then he no longer made a sound. He was severely injured by Ling Yue's arrow, and then enveloped by the gale, he was completely obliterated. A great expert of the 7th level of the Divine Emperor realm was killed by 2 young juniors just like that. To be honest, the 7th level of the Divine Emperor realm was truly shockingly strong, and his battle prowess was extremely terrifying. The main reason was that he was unlucky enough to meet Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Not only were the 2 of them monstrous geniuses, they also had terrifying killing weapons in their hands. The bearded man had completely died at the hands of the 2's killing weapons. When the bearded man's aura completely disappeared, Lu Ming released the gale. With a grab of his hand, the bearded man's storage ring flew into Lu Ming's hand. "We'll split the treasures inside," Lu Ming said to Ling Yue. This time, it was all thanks to Ling Yue. Otherwise, Lu Ming wouldn't have been able to keep the bearded man. Moreover, the reason why Ling Yue had come here was most likely to help him. This warmed his heart slightly. Ling Yue's character was still not bad, causing Lu Ming to have more trust in her. "No need, this storage ring is yours. Just treat it as me thanking you for letting me escape." Ling Yue smiled, like 100 flowers blooming, incomparably beautiful. The pearl on the universe's pearl list lived up to his reputation. "Then I won't be polite." Lu Ming smiled, and no longer held back. He kept the bearded man's storage ring. "Oh right, I've been trapped here for a year. How's the Bing Xian Life Soul Palace? Has it all been plundered?" Lu Ming asked. "Actually, I'm not too sure either. A year ago, after I escaped, I accidentally came to a wonderful place. That place was very suitable for me to cultivate. I cultivated there for a year, broke through to the Divine Emperor realm, and left. After leaving, I followed the direction you escaped in and found this place. As for what happened in the Bing Xian Life Soul Palace, I'm not too sure either," Ling Yue said. Lu Ming nodded his head. It seemed that Ling Yue was similar to him, and did not know what had happened in the Bing Xian Life Soul Hall. Since the 2 of them had met again, they naturally planned to continue working together. After that, the 2 of them left the snowy mountain and headed towards the depths of Bing Xian's Life Spirit Palace. Next, they found several cities and palace-like buildings in succession, but the things inside were all emptied. Obviously, others had beaten them to it. However, the 2 of them discovered a frightening scene. Those buildings were filled with dried corpses. Yes, it was exactly the same as what Lu Ming had seen before. Some of these mummified corpses were lying down, while others were sitting cross-legged. They seemed to be sleeping or cultivating. Suddenly, their essence, energy, and soul were sucked away, turning them into mummified corpses. It was definitely not left behind recently. It was left behind countless years ago. This made Lu Ming and Ling Yue puzzled. This was one of the 9 life spirit halls of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court, Bingxian Life Spirit Hall. The people who lived there were all from the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. Why would the people of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court be sucked dry in an instant? Could it be the doing of the Heavenly Palace? The 2 of them were puzzled and could only continue forward. Boom! Suddenly, from an unknown distance away, there was a rumbling sound. Space rippled with visible ripples. Following that, in that direction, a blood-colored light pierced through the clouds. Even from a distance, one could see it. The blood-colored light pierced through the clouds. It was dazzling, and the light was millions of feet long. It looked incomparably shocking. More than half of the Bingxian Life Spirit Hall was shaken. What is that? What a resplendent radiance. Could it be that some treasure has been born? Legend has it that the Life Spirit Heavenly Court is a powerful force that can challenge the Heavenly Palace. They have countless treasures. This is one of the 9 Life Spirit Palaces of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. They must have countless treasures. Let's go and take a look. Anyone who saw this scene all flew towards the direction of the resplendent light. Lu Ming and Ling Yue glanced at each other and nodded silently. Then, they also flew towards the direction of the light. The two of them were very fast. Soon, they arrived at the place where the light was coming from. It was a swamp. At first glance, it was boundless. There was no water in the swamp, but a blood-red liquid that looked like blood. The blood-colored light was coming from the depths of the swamp. When they arrived, the number of people increased dramatically. Many big shots of the chaotic Devil Star area appeared one by one. For example, the patriarch of the Demon Alligator clan was a big shot of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. The patriarch of the Demon Punishment sect was also a big shot of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. Apart from them, there were also some strong cultivators of the 6th and 5th Godly Emperor layer. There were as many strong cultivators as there were clouds. Even if there are treasures, they are mine. Those who block me will die, shouted the patriarch of the Demon Alligator clan coldly. His eyes were as cold as lightning. Hee, how arrogant. Do you really think you are the strongest in the chaotic Devil Star area? Ridiculous. The patriarch of the Demon Punishment sect was not afraid of the patriarch of the Demon Alligator clan. I will kill you sooner or later. The patriarch of the Demon Alligator clan grinned ferociously. Then, he led the members of the Demon Alligator clan and flew towards the depths of the swamp. The other forces also flew into the swamp. The swamp was very vast. So many people flew in, but it was not crowded at all. Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei also fell behind and flew into the swamp. In the swamp, the wind was calm and there was no wind at all. Below, the blood-red liquid was constantly emitting the smell of blood. It was very unpleasant. But in the next moment, a burst of fragrance floated into the noses of Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei. It's the 10,000 blood fruit. Suddenly, someone exclaimed. Lu Ming also saw a fruit tree growing in the middle of the swamp. The fruit tree was not tall, only as tall as an ordinary person. On the fruit tree, there were 7 blood-red fruits hanging. The intoxicating fragrance was emitted by these fruits. It's actually the 10,000 blood fruit. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly widened. The 10,000 blood fruit was a very precious divine medicine. Legend had it that it was condensed from the blood of thousands of creatures. It contained a majestic life essence. If a cultivator swallowed it, they could quickly refine their divine power and increase their cultivation. The 7 fruits were priceless. Many people's eyes flashed with a fiery light. It's mine. Immediately, someone moved and pounced at the 10,000 blood fruit at an astonishing speed. Get lost. Kill. The others reacted and pounced on the 10,000 blood fruit one after another, launching an intense battle. In the next moment, there were screams. Someone was killed, and blood flowed into the swamp. Dozens of experts surrounded the 10,000 blood fruit and launched an intense battle. Not long after, 7 or 8 people fell here. Their bodies fell into the swamp and were swallowed by the swamp. Boom! Suddenly, an aura as thick as the starry sky came crushing down. A giant palm covered in scales appeared and pressed down. Several experts did not even have time to scream before their bodies exploded. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 3872. A hand covered with scales killed a few strong cultivators. One of them was a cultivator of the 5th Godly Emperor layer. The others were shocked and retreated. A tall and sturdy silhouette appeared above the 10,000 blood fruit tree. Many people's pupils shrank and they were shocked. The patriarch of the Demon Alligator clan. That tall and sturdy silhouette was the patriarch of the Demon Alligator clan. Get lost if you don't want to die, shouted the patriarch of the Demon Alligator clan. The other people's faces were extremely ugly, and their eyes were filled with ferocity. However, although these people were all ferocious, none of them dared to talk back. The patriarch of the Demon Alligator clan was one of the overlords of the chaotic demon star field. Nobody dared to talk back to him unless they were at the same level as him. Although they didn't want to give up the 10,000 blood fruit, they could only retreat. Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei didn't want to fight either. Although the 10,000 blood fruit was of great use to Lu Ming as it contained a majestic life essence that could be absorbed by Lu Ming, converted into potential and stored. However, facing the patriarch of the demon alligator clan was too dangerous. His strength was definitely not weaker than the bearded man of the Blood Skull pirate group. Unless the two of them used all of their trump cards, they wouldn't be able to defeat him. However, if they used their trump cards in front of so many people, they would be targeted by others even if they could defeat the patriarch of the demon alligator clan. It wasn't worth it for a few 10,000 blood fruits. The two of them took a detour. Boom! Kill! At that moment, a great battle broke out in other directions. Groups of people were fighting fiercely and some of them died from time to time. Divine herbs also appeared in other directions. They were all very precious divine herbs. Many people were excited. They had only just entered the swamp, and they had already discovered precious divine medicines. Just how precious was the treasure that was emitting resplendent light in the center of the swamp? Some people directly abandoned the divine medicine here and sped up, flying towards the depths of the swamp. The treasure is mine. Those who block me will die, said the patriarch of the demon alligator clan. He roared and turned into a huge crocodile. He was 10,000 meters long and his body was pitch black. With a sweep of his tail, dozens of experts were hit, and their bodies exploded. Roar, roar, roar! The other experts of the demon alligator race also transformed into their true forms and followed the demon alligator race patriarch into the depths of the swamp. People of the demon punishment sect, come with me. The devil punishment sect master roared and led the experts of the devil punishment sect into the depths of the swamp. Go! The other top forces of the chaotic devil starfield also brought their experts and rushed into the depths of the swamp. The strongest of the chaotic devil starfield rushed into the depths of the swamp. However, there was still a group of people who did not rush in rashly. If those big shots went in, they wouldn't be able to compete with them. They might as well get some benefits here, which would be more practical. Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei also did not rush in. Even if there were extremely precious treasures in the depths of the swamp, with so many people rushing in, there would definitely be a fierce battle. It was not wise for them to rush in now. It would be more comfortable to obtain some divine herbs outside. There is also a 10,000 blood fruit there. Suddenly, Lu Ming saw another 10,000 blood fruit a few tens of thousands of meters to the left. There were 9 bright red fruits hanging on that 10,000 blood fruit, emitting an alluring luster. Swish! Lu Ming took a step forward and rushed in that direction. A trifling quasi-emperor wants to get a share of the 10,000 blood fruit? You're courting death. A tyrannical roar sounded. Then, a pitch-black demonic axe slashed towards Lu Ming from the side. The demonic chi was vast and mighty, oppressive. It was a cultivator of the second godly emperor layer. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. He suddenly turned around and punched. In this punch, he used the great fragmentation art. Dang! Lu Ming's fist landed on the pitch-black demonic axe and there was a terrifying roar. Waves of energy spread out in all directions. At that moment, Lu Ming saw that the one who had attacked him was a strong man with a horn on his head. At that moment, the strong man's eyes were filled with shock and fear. Kacha! The demonic axe in the strong man's hand emitted cracking sounds. Numerous cracks appeared on it and in the end, the demonic axe broke into pieces. Not only that, but the large man's body was also filled with cracks. It was as if his entire body was made of porcelain. Boom! In the end, the strong man's body exploded and turned into pieces. The great shattering technique had broken his body into pieces. A cultivator of the second godly emperor layer had been instantly killed by Lu Ming. He hadn't been able to fight back at all. Is this my current strength? Lu Ming's eyes were twinkling. He was very satisfied with his strength. A moment before, he hadn't even used the battle formula, he had only used the forbidden strength and the great shattering technique. That little boy, the pupils of many people in the surroundings shrank when they saw this scene. They felt a little scared. A quasi-emperor had surprisingly killed a cultivator of the second godly emperor layer. That was terrifying. Was he a peerless genius from a powerful clan? Who cares if he's a peerless genius? Kill him and we'll get his treasures. Hee, that little boy is mine. Those people were all extremely evil. Even though they were scared at the beginning, they were immediately filled with greed. In the chaotic demon star area, there were many geniuses who went there to gain experience. It wasn't like they hadn't killed those geniuses before. Besides, those geniuses usually had many treasures. Killing one of them was a huge profit. Therefore, after a few breaths, 7 or 8 people threw themselves at Lu Ming. Among those people, there were cultivators of the 3rd and 4th godly emperor layers. Those who had the strength of the 5th godly emperor layer and above had all gone into the depths of the swamp. 7 to 8 experts and 7 to 8 attacks shrouded Lu Ming in an instant. With so many strong cultivators joining hands, even a cultivator of the 4th godly emperor layer would be in danger, let alone a quasi-emperor. Good. Lu Ming felt invigorated from head to toe. He immediately activated the battle formula to increase his combat strength by 5 times, raising his combat strength to the peak. BZZZ, BZZZ, BZZZ. 3 gravity pearls flew out at the same time. A powerful gravitational force surrounded the 7 or 8 strong cultivators. At the same time, Lu Ming used the Great Shattering Technique and the Great Godly Wind Technique. He punched out continuously. His punches contained the strength of the Great Godly Wind Technique and the strength of the Great Shattering Technique. His punches turned into rolling waves of energy and collided with the attacks of the 7 or 8 strong cultivators. Those cultivators of the 3rd godly emperor layer couldn't withstand a single attack from Lu Ming's punches. His punches continued bombarding those people. Those people didn't even have time to scream before they were killed. Chapter 3873. 5 cultivators of the 3rd godly emperor layer were instantly killed by Lu Ming's punch. The 3 cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer coughed up blood and were blown away. They couldn't believe their eyes. It was too terrifying, too terrifying. Lu Ming could instantly kill cultivators of the 2nd godly emperor layer. He could even instantly kill cultivators of the 3rd godly emperor layer. How was that possible? How could there be such a strong cultivator in the world? Unfortunately, cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer are still very difficult to kill, thought Lu Ming, sighing. Even though he could instantly kill cultivators of the 3rd godly emperor layer, fighting against cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer wasn't easy. The difference between each godly emperor layer was huge. The difference between each godly emperor layer was even bigger. It was extremely difficult to cross a godly emperor layer. With the strength of the quasi-emperor layer, he could instantly kill cultivators of the 3rd godly emperor layer. That was a miracle among miracles. In the entire ancient desolate universe, only a handful of people could do that. In the vast universe, that was already the peak. Die, thought Lu Ming, sighing. He didn't stop attacking. He continued moving towards the 3 cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer. Sky-breaking sword. Cloud-flipping blade. Cloud-soaring claw. Shouted the 3 cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer furiously. They used their strongest attacks to fight against Lu Ming. Boom boom boom. Both sides fought intensely. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged a dozen attacks. The 3 cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer were completely suppressed by Lu Ming and kept retreating. Oh my god, not far away, Ling Yuwei's mouth was agape. Her eyes were filled with astonishment. She was strong enough, but when she was a quasi-emperor layer, she could only kill cultivators of the 2nd godly emperor layer, and it wouldn't be that easy. But Lu Ming could instantly kill cultivators of the 3rd godly emperor layer and suppress 3 cultivators of the 4th godly emperor layer. He was much stronger than her. They were both incredible geniuses. Why was the difference between them so great? The other people of the chaotic demon star region were even more astonished. They thought they were dreaming. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming and the three cultivators had exchanged a dozen attacks. Boom! At that moment, Lu Ming used his battle formula to increase his fighting strength by 6 times. One of the cultivators of the fourth godly emperor layer wasn't able to block him. Lu Ming punched him in the stomach, and his lower body exploded. A dazzling star appeared in his dantian. It was wrapped in his divine light and flew into the distance. The other 2 cultivators of the fourth godly emperor layer were astonished. They ran away as fast as they could and disappeared. The 3 cultivators of the fourth godly emperor layer ran away. Lu Ming didn't give chase. He stopped and carefully sensed his own battle prowess. After this battle, he had a rough idea of his own combat strength. He could suppress ordinary cultivators of the fourth godly emperor layer. If he caught them off guard, he could even kill them. But against cultivators of the fifth godly emperor layer, he couldn't compete with them. The difference between each level was huge. It was impossible for him to fight against cultivators of the fifth godly emperor layer. The difference between them was too great. Even if he practiced a few more ancient secret skills, or if he had broken through to the great godly wind technique or the great shattering technique, he wouldn't have been able to become that strong. If he wanted to fight against cultivators of the fifth godly emperor layer, he would have to wait until he broke through to the godly emperor layer. "This guy," whispered Ling Yue in the distance. Lu Ming's fighting strength was astonishing. Even though she had broken through to the godly emperor layer, she wasn't 100% sure that she could suppress Lu Ming. At most, she would be a little bit stronger. But she had already broken through to the godly emperor layer, and Lu Ming was still at the quasi-emperor layer. This time, no one dared to deal with Lu Ming anymore. Lu Ming easily kept the 9 myriad blood fruits in his bag. Lu Ming was delighted. Now, he wanted to break through to the godly emperor layer and become a quasi-emperor layer. Therefore, the more resources he had, the better. After keeping the 9 myriad blood fruits, Lu Ming continued to head in another direction. Ling Yue temporarily separated from him to collect resources. In any case, almost all the cultivators of the fifth godly emperor layer had rushed into the depths of the swamp. In the outer area, the 2 of them were strong enough to move unhindered. In addition, they all had their own trump cards. Even if they met someone stronger, they wouldn't be afraid. In this way, Lu Ming continued to collect. A few hours later, he had collected dozens of 10,000 blood fruits. Although dozens of blood fruits couldn't help him break through to the godly emperor layer, it was still a considerable amount of resources. Rumble. At this moment, a violent rumble came from the depths of the swamp. The blood-colored light disappeared without a trace. The violent rumble became louder and louder. Suddenly, miserable screams came from the depths of the swamp. One after another, they rose and fell. Outside the swamp, Lu Ming and the others stopped and looked into the depths of the swamp. They looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what had happened in the depths of the swamp. Ling Yue silently appeared beside Lu Ming. "What's going on?" Ling Yue frowned. She had a bad premonition. "I don't know either. Could it be that those people in the depths of the swamp are fighting over the treasures? Let's wait and see," Lu Ming said. Lu Ming wasn't the only one who thought so. In fact, the others also thought so. They thought that those big shots who had entered the depths of the swamp had fought over the treasures. But not long after, everyone's expression changed. The ground shook more and more violently. Then, the blood-colored liquid in the swamp suddenly boiled like the waves of the sea. Voila! Suddenly, the blood-colored liquid flew into the sky and formed layers of blood-colored water screens, blocking their way out. "What's going on? Not good, let's rush out first. This place is strange." Many people's expressions changed drastically. They all rushed out, wanting to leave this place first. However, everyone was blocked by the blood-colored light screen. Damn it, break for me. Break. Many people roared and attacked. However, no matter if it was a cultivator of the third or fourth godly emperor layer, their attacks were useless. When their attacks landed on the blood-colored light screen, they were like stones sinking into the sea, disappearing without a trace. Let me try. Ling Yue drew her bow and shot out an arrow, striking the blood-colored light screen. However, it was useless. Like the others, it was blocked by the blood-colored light screen. This is troublesome. Ling Yue's expression became serious. Someone's coming out. Suddenly, someone shouted. Swish, 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 many people flew out from the depths of the swamp. There weren't many of them, only a few dozen. Everyone saw the patriarch of the demon alligator clan, the patriarch of the demon punishment sect, and other big shots of the chaotic devil Starfield. The others were also cultivators of the sixth godly emperor layer. As for those below the sixth godly emperor layer, none of them could be seen. Even the patriarch of the demon alligator clan and the others were injured. Their bodies were tattered and their chi was weak. They had obviously suffered heavy injuries. Charge out. What are we still doing here? Let's rush out together. Roared the patriarch of the demon alligator clan. We can't rush out. We're blocked. Someone replied. Chapter 3874. Can't get out? Open. The leader of the demon alligator race roared. His tail was like a long spear as it pierced the blood-red light screen. However, it was still blocked and could not be broken. Damn it. The leader of the demon alligator race roared. His eyes revealed a panicked expression. What exactly happened? Where are the treasures? Someone shouted. There are no treasures at all. We've been tricked. Quick, let's work together to break the blood-red light screen and get out. The leader of the demon punisher sect roared. His voice was filled with anxiety and panic. We've been tricked. Everyone was puzzled. Who tricked us? Rumble. At that moment, a violent rumble came from the depths of the swamp. It was as if thousands of waves were sweeping over. Then, everyone saw a blood-red wave rushing out from the depths of the swamp. It was as if a sea of blood was pressing down on them. Don't even think about running away from the blood-gathering array. Become my nutrients, ha ha ha. A carefree laugh came from the blood-red wave. Xiao Wuji. Lu Ming and Ling Yue could not help but exclaim. That's right. The person who had come was Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji stepped on the blood-red wave. His long hair fluttered in the wind, making him look like an invincible blood demon. Ha ha ha, Mu Yun, Ling Yue, you're all here. Good, very good. Kill you and your life spirit origin stone fragments will be mine. Xiao Wuji laughed. His laughter was even more wanton and carefree. Xiao Wuji, is this a trap? Lu Ming asked. That's right. Now that things have come to this, I might as well tell you that one of my ancestors was a big shot in the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. That's why I know a lot about the Life Spirit Heavenly Court, including the Blood Gathering Array here. As long as you become nutrients for the Blood Gathering Array, I can use the Blood Gathering Array to evolve into the invincible Blood Shura. I'll dominate the universe and be invincible among my peers. Xiao Wuji laughed. No one could escape from the Blood Sieve Grand Formation. Thus, he took his time to reveal his secret. Everyone was shocked. It turned out that Xiao Wuji's ancestor was an important figure in the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. The Life Spirit Heavenly Court was a very special force. It was not created by a large clan, nor was it controlled by a large clan. People from the Heavenly Court came from all over the primitive universe. They were from different races. According to legend, there were even primitive gods inside. It was normal that Xiao Wuji's ancestor was an important figure in the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. Looks like the news about Bing Xian's Life Soul Hall was also leaked out. The purpose is to attract even more people, Lu Ming stared at Xiao Wuji. You're very smart, Mu Yun. That's right. I'm the one who spread the news. The Great Azura formation needs nourishment, and I need nourishment to evolve into a Blood Azura. That's why you're attracting people from the All-Devil Starfield to become my nourishment. Xiao Wuji Dao. When the others heard this, their faces turned pale. As it turned out, Xiao Wuji was treating them as nutrients. He wanted to wipe them all out. This swamp was left behind by Xiao Wuji's ancestor. It was a great formation that was now completely under Xiao Wuji's control. As for the blood-colored light from before, it was all fake. It was just bait that Xiao Wuji had set up to attract them. They understood, but their hearts turned cold. Obviously, the hundreds of experts who had entered before had died and become nutrients for the Great Azura formation. Everyone was fooled. Let's go, let's go. Let's go together. The Demon Alligator Clan Patriarch, Demon Punishment Sect Patriarch and other big shots roared and attacked together. Dazzling divine light gathered together and blasted towards the light screen. The others did the same. They attacked the light screen together, but it was useless. The blood-red light screen only shook a few times, but nothing happened. Ling Yue's face turned pale. If the Demon Alligator Clan Patriarch and the others could not break it, then even if she took out the Elven Royal Bow, she would not be able to break it. Were they really going to stay here today? Don't waste your time. The Great Azura formation is not something that can be broken by brute force. Go to hell. Xiao Wuji sneered and waved his hands. Waves of blood filled the sky. These waves of blood turned into blood-red tentacles and wrapped around the crowd. Suddenly, hundreds of people were wrapped around by the blood-red tentacles. Once they were wrapped around by the blood-red tentacles, their bodies started to corrode quickly, like ice melting. In the blink of an eye, these people disappeared without a trace. They had completely merged into the blood-red water and became nutrients for the Great Azura formation. Many people trembled and felt a chill down their spines. It was too terrifying. Some of the tentacles wrapped around the Demon Alligator Clan Patriarch and the others. These big shots' faces changed drastically. They took out their divine weapons and self-destructed. Finally, they broke free from the blood-red tentacles. However, they had paid a huge price. A large piece of their flesh was corroded and their auras were much weaker. Everyone finally knew why the Demon Alligator Clan Patriarch and the others were so heavily injured. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but Xiao Wuji did not control the blood-red tentacles to deal with Lu Ming and Ling Yue. It seemed that he wanted to leave the two of them behind and deal with them later. The two of them leaned against each other and slowly retreated. What should we do? Ling Yue secretly sent a message to Lu Ming. Let's wait and see. Lu Ming said. If there was no other way, he could only rely on the purple copper coffin. It's this kid who is controlling the formation. Kill. As long as we kill him, the formation will break. Someone shouted. That's right. Let's kill him first. The others' eyes lit up. Suddenly, hundreds of experts from the chaotic Devil Starfield rushed towards Xiao Wuji. Don't rush over. The Demon Punisher Sect Patriarch shouted. However, it was too late. You're courting death. Xiao Wuji shouted coldly and pressed forward with one hand. Suddenly, the sea of blood behind him began to twist violently. Tentacles appeared one after another. There were at least a few hundred of them. Hundreds of tentacles danced in the air, and the hundreds of experts who had attacked him were all enveloped by the tentacles. Miserable screams rang out, and after a few breaths, the screams came to an abrupt end. These people had all died. Good, good. Ha ha ha. Xiao Wuji laughed. At this moment, Xiao Wuji's body was covered in a layer of blood-red light. His body was constantly wriggling, as if it was made entirely of blood. Xiao Wuji was undergoing a miraculous change. He was transforming into a blood Shura. The blood Shura was said to be the royal family of the Shura race. They were extremely terrifying and invincible. It was said that once a blood Shura appeared, it would be difficult to find an opponent of the same level. It was a legendary existence. The number of blood Shuras that were born in the Shura race could be counted on one hand. Once Xiao Wuji transformed into a blood Shura, his talent would rise to a terrifying level. He would not even care about the monsters of the top 10 races. Rumble. The blood-red waves rolled. After absorbing so many experts, the blood Shura array seemed to be even stronger. Chapter 3875. The Demon Alligator Race Patriarch, Demon Punishment Sect Patriarch, and the others were shocked. They joined forces to attack the blood-colored light screen, trying to break it and escape. However, no matter how they attacked, they couldn't break the blood-colored light screen. The blood-gathering formation is 1. Unless you destroy this blood sea, don't even think about rushing out. Become my nutrients. Kill. Xiao Wuji bellowed. The blood sea raged and the boundless blood turned into tentacles, sweeping towards the clan leader of the demon crocodile clan and the others. This time, Xiao Wuji did not let Lu Ming and Ling Yue off. He also attacked them. A few blood-colored tentacles swept towards the two of them. Lu Ming and Ling Yue's faces were very serious. They used their killing weapons at the same time. Ling Yue took out the Elf King Bao with blood. Her divine power surged. A towering tree condensed and floated behind her. Boundless life essence was injected into her body. Whoosh! An arrow seemed to break through the universe and shot forward. After flying out, it rapidly expanded and became tens of thousands of meters long. Bang! 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 The arrow hit a few blood-colored tentacles, and a violent explosion burst out. A few tentacles actually exploded. The demon alligator race patriarch and the others in the surroundings widened their eyes in shock. However, at this time, they didn't have time to be shocked because they couldn't take care of themselves. After being shocked for a moment, they had to restrain their minds and use all their strength to resist the blood-colored tentacles. Unfortunately, there were too many blood-colored tentacles. Ling Yue shot a few of them, but there were still more blood-colored tentacles sweeping towards them. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Lu Ming took out the Gale Pearl and drew out the gale from it, sweeping away the gale. A dense explosion sounded, and a few of the blood-colored tentacles were cut open. However, there were immediately other tentacles sweeping towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming's face was very serious. These tentacles were very strange and filled with a terrifying corrosive power. Even the gale would be corroded. It was very terrifying. What should I do? Do I have to use the purple copper coffin? Lu Ming's mind raced. Given the current situation, it seemed like he could only use the purple copper coffin. Lu Ming wasn't sure if it would work or not. After all, the last time he had faced the Blood Skull Pirates, nothing had happened when he had taken out the copper coffin. Lu Ming used taboo power. This is the power of the Blood Azura. It's very high level. Only someone of a higher level can break through it. At this moment, Bone reminded him. Blood Azura power. Lu Ming's heart stirred. In the primitive universe, in addition to the ordinary divine power, there were also some mysterious powers. These powers were usually extremely terrifying and mysterious. However, they were extremely rare and difficult to control. For example, the taboo power was one of them. Furthermore, it was the highest level power. In the instant they communicated, a few tentacles had already swept towards the two of them. Ling Yue was so scared that her face turned pale. On the other hand, Lu Ming's expression remained unchanged. He circulated his forbidden energy and covered his entire body. Then, he suddenly punched out. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming's fist continuously collided with a few blood-colored tentacles. The few blood-colored tentacles were like tofu. They were defeated effortlessly by Lu Ming. It's really effective. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. At the moment of collision, Lu Ming could clearly feel that his taboo power had easily destroyed the power of the tentacles. Xiao Wuji's long and narrow eyes narrowed. Killing intent exploded. Looks like he still has some trump cards. Then, I'll take care of them later. Xiao Wuji muttered. He didn't think that Lu Ming had mastered a power that was higher than the power of the blood Azura. He only thought that Lu Ming had some kind of treasure on him that allowed him to destroy the tentacles. He planned to deal with the demon alligator race's patriarch and the others first. He wanted to raise the power of the blood Azura formation to its peak before dealing with Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei. Xiao Wuji immediately focused on the demon alligator race's patriarch and the others. The strong cultivators of the chaotic demon star area were dying one after another. At that moment, almost all the cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer and below had died. They had all turned into nutrients for the blood Azura formation. The blood in the sea of blood became brighter, more pungent, and more powerful. Finally, a cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer couldn't endure it anymore. A few tentacles wrapped around him and his body melted, turning into nutrients for the blood Azura formation. The first cultivator of the 6th godly emperor layer couldn't endure it anymore. Behind him, even more cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer couldn't endure it anymore. Roar! A huge demon crocodile was tightly entangled. The indestructible scales on its body were like ice meeting fire in the blood, melting unceasingly. Father, save me! Hurry up and save me! Shouted the demon alligator of the 6th godly emperor layer. He was terrified, his gigantic body kept twisting. That demon alligator was the most outstanding son of the demon alligator race's patriarch. You want to kill us? I'll die too, said the patriarch of the demon alligator race. His eyes were bloodshot. He knew he couldn't escape. He looked furious as he threw himself at Xiao Wuji. Roar! Shouted the patriarch of the demon alligator race. His 4 claws were like dragon claws as he moved toward Xiao Wuji. His tail whipped the air and a terrifying strength moved toward Xiao Wuji. However, Xiao Wuji was smiling coldly. You overestimate yourself. Alright, I'll send you on your way. 1,000 arms blood Azura, melt everything, said Xiao Wuji, waving his hands and performing some hand seals. In a flash, the sea of blood started rolling and an endless amount of blood condensed into arms. Those arms looked like Azura's arms, but they were blood red and covered with ferocious red scales. They moved towards the patriarch of the demon alligator race. There were arms everywhere. The patriarch of the demon alligator race's attack was blocked by the blood-red arms. Then, those arms grabbed his body. As soon as these arms grabbed his body, they seeped into his body. Roar! Shouted the patriarch of the demon alligator race in agony. His gigantic body kept twisting as he tried to break free. But this time, no matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. A terrifying strength penetrated into his body and his chi was becoming weaker and weaker. The scales on his body, his flesh, were melting away. At that moment, the demon alligator of the 6th godly emperor layer had already melted and turned into nutrients for the blood Azura spell. He wasn't the only one. Many other cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer couldn't resist and melted. Only a few cultivators of the 7th godly emperor layer and a few stronger cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer were left. However, it would appear that their fates had already been decided. Despair filled their eyes. Die. Kill him. Even if we die, we'll make him pay. In the end, the strong cultivators of the chaotic demon star area decided to join hands and attack Xiao Wuji. Chapter 3876. A dozen strong cultivators from the chaotic demon star area joined hands and attacked Xiao Wuji. At that moment, the leader of the demon crocodile clan couldn't hold on any longer. His body exploded and his flesh melted into the Shui Luo Great Formation. A cultivator of the 7th Godly Emperor layer had been absorbed by the Shui Luo Great Formation. The Shui Luo Great Formation's power increased tremendously. The red light on Limitless Xiu's body became even more intense. His body began to wriggle rapidly, and many fine blood-red scales suddenly appeared on his skin. He was quickly becoming a blood azura. Ha ha ha. Awesome. You can all die together. Xiao Wuji raised his head to the sky and burst into laughter. His blood-red claws moved towards the remaining strong cultivators. You want me to die? You won't have an easy time either. A relatively strong cultivator of the 6th Godly Emperor layer shouted ferociously. His body swelled up, and then there was a loud explosion as he exploded. He had chosen to self-detonate. A cultivator of the 6th Godly Emperor layer had self-detonated. It was terrifying. It was like a star exploding. Destructive energies swept in all directions. Many blood-red claws exploded. Let's go. The remaining people seized the opportunity to attack Xiao Wuji. Do you think you can deal with me by using such a suicidal method? How naive. Die. Smiled Xiao Wuji coldly. He raised his hands and more blood-red claws condensed. Explode. Die together. The remaining people kept self-detonating. The terrifying energies could destroy the sky and the earth. Unfortunately, in the Shui Luo Great Formation, the destructive energies weren't very useful. The blood-red claws blocked them. Furthermore, the remaining people were surrounded by countless arms before being captured. Including a few cultivators of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. Those people couldn't even self-detonate. They melted one after the other. Ha ha ha. You too, do you see that? Those who oppose me are all going to die. You too are peerless geniuses. Don't worry, I've absorbed your life essence. I won't waste it. In the future, I'll be invincible. In the future, I will dominate the universe and create a new heavenly court. Even the heavenly palace will be under my feet. Xiao Wuji laughed. His confidence had reached its peak, and he didn't even put the heavenly palace in his eyes. Ling Yuwei's face turned pale, but Lu Ming still had a calm expression on his face. He still had a trump card in his hand that he had yet to use. Naturally, he was not worried. His gaze was fixed on a few places. No one knew what he was thinking. Ah! The sect leader of the Devil Punisher sect couldn't take it, and his body melted. His essence became nutrients for the Blood Azura Grand Formation, which was then absorbed by Xiao Wuji, helping him evolve into a Blood Azura. Now! At this moment, Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. He pulled Ling Yue's small hand and rushed in a certain direction. Ling Yue had no idea what to do. She could only rely on Lu Ming. When Lu Ming pulled her hand, even though she blushed, she didn't resist. She let Lu Ming pull her in that direction. Lu Ming and Ling Yue were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, they appeared a few hundred li away. Lu Ming stretched out his hand and grabbed a ring of holding. That ring of holding belonged to the leader of the Devil Alligator clan. The leader of the Devil Alligator clan was a cultivator of the 7th Godly Emperor layer. Even if that wasn't the case, the leader of the Devil Alligator clan had collected a lot of 10,000 blood fruits, which made Lu Ming very excited. The treasure was right in front of him, how could he miss it? When Xiao Wuji saw that Lu Ming was still thinking about the ring of holding, he was so angry that he laughed. How greedy! You don't know what death is. Xiao Wuji sneered. He wasn't in a hurry to take the ring of holding because there was no need to rush. After he killed everyone and turned into a Blood Azura, he could take it slowly. He hadn't thought that Lu Ming would still be thinking about the ring of holding. Wasn't that ridiculous? Mu Yun, greed without strength is stupid. It seems like I overestimated you. Now, I'll send you on your way. Xiao Wuji's disdainful and cold voice spread in the air. Then, he waved his hand and at least a dozen tentacles moved towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. They were in the middle of the Blood Azura Great Formation, so they couldn't avoid it. Let's go all out. Ling Yue gritted her teeth. She wanted to continue pulling the elven royal bow and fight to the death. No need. Lu Ming waved his hand and stood in front of Ling Yue. His entire body was covered with forbidden strength. Then, he slashed his hand continuously. Pu. In other people's eyes, the blood-red tentacles were terrifying. But in Lu Ming's hands, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. Lu Ming's palm slashed across, and the blood-red tentacles collapsed. Not a single one could get within 1,000 meters of Lu Ming. This time, not only was Ling Yue shocked, but Xiao Wuji also widened his eyes in shock. Then, Xiao Wuji's eyes were filled with killing intent. Let's see how many moves you can take from me. Melt for me. Xiao Wuji shouted. His hands formed seals, and countless blood-red arms grabbed at Lu Ming. Each arm was like a small hill, emitting a pungent smell. They wanted to grab Lu Ming and melt him. However, Lu Ming's palms kept slashing out. The forbidden strength turned into dazzling saber light that swept across the sky. Those blood-red palms were cut in half by the saber light. Impossible, how is this possible? What kind of power is this? How can it break through my Blood Azura Great Formation? This time, Xiao Wuji couldn't stay calm anymore. He roared in disbelief. Lu Ming couldn't be bothered with him. He brought Ling Yue with him. His figure flickered, and a few more storage rings fell into his hands. They were all the storage rings of the top bosses. Blood waves overflow, die for me. Xiao Wuji seemed to have gone crazy. His aura was boiling, and an endless amount of blood swept towards Lu Ming like a sea of blood. Let's go. This time, Lu Ming was still fighting. He pulled Ling Yue and rushed outside. After all, they were in the Blood Azura Great Formation. Although his forbidden strength was of a higher level than the Blood Azura Great Formation, his cultivation was limited. His forbidden strength was also limited. If he continued to use it, it would be disadvantageous for him. Now that he had gotten the benefits, it was time to retreat. There was no need to waste time with Xiao Wuji. Soon, Lu Ming and Ling Yue rushed to the blood-red light screen. Lu Ming's palm was like a saber, slashing down. The previously unshakable blood-red light screen was forcefully cut open by Lu Ming. The blood-red light screen was formed by the Blood Azura Great Formation. Ordinary divine power couldn't break it, but it couldn't stop the forbidden strength. Chapter 3877. After cutting open a crack in the blood-colored light screen, Lu Ming and Ling Yue rushed out of the crack. Damn it, die for me. Xiao Wuji roared crazily. He controlled the sea of blood and chased after Lu Ming and Ling Yue. However, Lu Ming and Ling Yue were already out of the range of the Blood Azura Great Formation. Xiao Wuji couldn't catch up at all. With a few flashes, they disappeared into the horizon, leaving behind a furious Xiao Wuji. He had miscalculated. He didn't expect Lu Ming and Ling Yue to escape. This way, he wouldn't be able to return to the Azura race. His ancestors were from the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. He could use the Blood Azura Great Formation in the Life Spirit Hall to cultivate. This meant that he was also a remnant of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. If word of this got out, the Heavenly Palace wouldn't let him go. Before this, he was completely confident that he could keep everyone here. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to reveal all his secrets. Now, he regretted it to death. If he had known that Lu Ming was so strange, he wouldn't have revealed all his secrets. Mu Yun, Ling Yue, when I completely transform into a Blood Azura, it will be the time of your death. I hope you won't be in a hurry to leave the Life Spirit Hall. Xiao Wuji gritted his teeth, his face ferocious. Not only did he want to kill Lu Ming and Ling Yue to silence them, but he also wanted to obtain their Life Spirit Origin Stone fragments. This was very important to his future plans. Then, he retreated into the depths of the Blood Azura Great Formation and started to cultivate. With the help of the Blood Azura Great Formation, he evolved in the direction of a Blood Azura. As for Lu Ming and Ling Yue, they left the swamp and kept flying. After flying for a long time, the two of them finally stopped. Mu Yun, this time, thank you. Ling Yue's face was still a little red as she thanked Lu Ming. You helped me once before, so I saved you once. It's only right. Lu Ming smiled. I didn't expect Xiao Wuji's ancestor to be an important figure in the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. It seems that you deliberately cooperated with us to use us to help him cultivate into a Blood Shura and obtain the treasures of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. Ling Yue said coldly, her expression somewhat ugly. This time, it was really a little dangerous. He did not know what method Lu Ming used to actually be able to break through the power of the Blood Azura. Ling Yue curiously sized up Lu Ming. Could it be that Lu Ming had mastered a power of a higher level than the power of Blood Azura? Ling Yue's mind was filled with thoughts. Lu Ming naturally wouldn't explain further. After that, the two of them found a remote place to rest. Although Ling Yue had broken through to the Divine Emperor realm, using the Elven King Bao with blood continuously consumed a lot of energy. She needed to recover well. Lu Ming didn't need to rest. Instead, he took out a few storage rings and cleaned them up. These storage rings belonged to big shots like the Demon Alligator Race Patriarch and the Devil Punishment Sect Master. The collection inside was indeed very rich. There were all kinds of divine weapons, divine pills, and materials. There were a lot of them. And the number of divine crystals was even more enormous. Lu Ming collected all of these divine crystals together. He planned to find an opportunity to buy a batch of treasures that contained pure energy. Originally, Lu Ming wanted to see if there were any secret techniques that could be used. However, he discovered that there were no ordinary secret techniques in the storage rings of these people. The energy of these big shots was all focused on their origin secret techniques. Ordinary secret techniques could only be cultivated in a few auxiliary types. It was normal for them to not have any ordinary secret techniques on them. What Lu Ming liked the most was the myriad blood fruit. In a few storage rings, he found a few hundred myriad blood fruits. These were the treasures that were of great use to Lu Ming. All of them were stored in a storage ring. After Lu Ming had cleaned up everything, Ling Yue had almost recovered. Where are we going next? Should we leave, or should we continue investigating? Lu Ming asked Ling Yue. I want to continue investigating. Ling Yue said, the Bingxian Life Soul Palace is extremely strange. How could all the people here turn into dried corpses? What kind of secret does this contain? Moreover, there doesn't seem to have been a great battle in the Bingxian Life Soul Palace. There are no traces of a great battle anywhere. This means that this place was not invaded by the Heavenly Palace in the past. It is very likely that there are still a large number of treasures left behind here, especially the 18 Hall suppressing divine weapons. As she finished speaking, Ling Yue's eyes lit up. 18 Hall suppressing divine weapons? Lu Ming revealed a puzzled expression. That's right, I've checked the information on the 18 Hall suppressing divine weapons. Legend has it that other than the 4 great treasures, there are also 18 Hall suppressing divine weapons. Every Life Soul Palace has 2 divine weapons, and they are all extremely terrifying treasures. They are the top divine weapons of the universe, and their power is boundless. Ling Yue said. Hearing this, Lu Ming's eyes also emitted a dazzling light. There was no need for any other description. Just by hearing the words top divine weapon of the universe, one could tell how extraordinary it was. As for the Bingxian Life Soul Palace, there were no traces of it being invaded. Were the 18 Hall suppressing divine weapons still here? Lu Ming immediately nodded. He had to continue investigating. The two of them left this place and calculated the direction. Then, they headed towards the depths of the Bingxian Life Soul Palace. Following that, the two of them discovered several ruins. Some of these ruins had collapsed, but they weren't caused by a great battle. Instead, they had collapsed naturally over the years. Inside these buildings, they still found some dried corpses. They even found a large number of desolate beast corpses in the wild. Even the desolate beasts in the wild had their essence, energy, and spirit sucked dry. It was as if in the distant past, all the living beings in the entire world of the Bingxian Life Soul Palace had suddenly been sucked dry of their essence, energy, and spirit. Just thinking about it made one feel terrified. Furthermore, due to the passage of time, ordinary treasures had lost their spirituality. The two of them didn't gain much. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already wandered around the Bingxian Life Soul Palace for 7 days. On this day, as the two of them were flying, their expressions suddenly changed. This was because they could feel that the Life Soul Origin Stone in their bodies was slightly beating. What's going on? My Life Soul Origin Stone fragment is constantly beating. Ling Yue was surprised. With a thought, the Life Spirit Origin Stone fragment appeared and trembled slightly. On top of it, it emitted a strange light. My Life Soul Origin Stone fragment is the same. Lu Ming took out his Life Soul Origin Stone fragment and discovered that his Life Soul Origin Stone fragment was also like this. It trembled slightly and was enveloped by a layer of light. Suddenly, the stone spirit of Lu Ming's Life Soul Origin Stone fragment appeared. It looked in a certain direction and revealed a longing expression. In that direction, there is something I desire. The Life Soul Origin Stone spirit said, its old eyes emitting a dazzling light. As it spoke, it didn't forget to fiercely sweep its gaze across the Life Soul Origin Stone fragment in Ling Yue's hand, flickering with greed. As for Ling Yue's Life Soul Origin Stone fragment, a stone spirit also appeared. Chapter 3878. Lu Ming and Ling Yue glanced at each other. Their vitality stones could sense it. Could it be that there was really an important treasure in that direction? Let's go and take a look, said Lu Ming as he put away the fragments of his Life Spirit Origin Stone. Ling Yue also put it away. The two of them turned into 2 streaks of light and flew in that direction. As the two of them continued moving forward, their Life Spirit Origin Stones started vibrating more and more. They were constantly vibrating in their minds. There was definitely something extraordinary in front of them. Otherwise, their Life Spirit Origin Stones wouldn't be like that. The two of them were filled with anticipation. After a few hours, they finally made a big discovery. The sky in front of them was completely covered by a layer of light. The multicolored light was divided into 2 colors, one crimson red and the other dark blue. The 2 lights covered half the sky. Even if they were very far away, they could still see them. Is it really a treasure? The two of them looked pensive as they thought about the swamp from before. Previously, Xiao Wuji had purposely created an illusion that there was a treasure in the sky. It had attracted a large number of strong cultivators and caused them to fall into a trap. Now, the light of the treasure filled the air again. Lu Ming and Ling Yue had no choice but to be more cautious. The two of them withdrew their qi and continued flying. Then, a gigantic mountain appeared in front of them. This mountain was extremely majestic. It was unknown how big it was, but it towered into the sky. The 2 rays of light were emitted from the top of the mountain. Swish swish swish, when the two of them got closer, they realized that there were many people flying around the mountain. They were also strong cultivators from the chaotic demon star region. Previously, Xiao Wuji's plan did not attract everyone because some people were too far away and did not see it. It was obvious that another group of people had been attracted to that place. However, there weren't many people who had been attracted to that place, but there were still many strong cultivators among them. In front of them, an old man in red robes was standing in the air. His robes were fluttering in the wind. He released a terrifying qi. Many people distanced themselves from him, not daring to get close. That old man in red robes was a famous strong cultivator in the chaotic demon star region. He was a top cultivator of the 7th godly emperor layer. However, these people stood around the mountain peak, not daring to approach. Lu Ming and Ling Yue flew closer. When they looked at the mountain peak again, their hearts shook violently, and their eyes couldn't help but widen. Because they saw a shocking scene. Many living beings were sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak. Some of these creatures were in the form of beasts, some were in the form of humans, and some were in the form of plants. However, they all had one thing in common, and that was that they had all turned into dried corpses. Yes, all of them had turned into dried corpses. Their essence, energy, and soul had been sucked away. As far as the eye could see, the entire mountain was covered with these dried corpses. Terrifying, strange, terrifying, and full of mystery. Lu Ming and Ling Yue's eyes were filled with shock. These people were obviously from Bing Xian's Soul Palace, but why was it like this? It wasn't hard to tell that the creatures on the mountain had gathered here on their own accord. These living beings gathered around the mountain peak, and then their essence, energy, and spirit were instantly sucked away. What exactly happened back then? Besides, why didn't the big shots of the chaotic devil Starfield dare to climb the mountain? Could it be that there was danger on the mountain peak? Lu Ming and Ling Yue naturally wouldn't climb the mountain so easily. However, when they arrived at this place, the fragments of their life spirit origin stones were already shaking violently, as if they were about to break out of their bodies and fly out. Damn it, after these dried corpses died, they even left behind an indestructible battle soul. How troublesome. Isn't that so? There must be a supreme treasure at the top of this mountain. Around them, some people were discussing in low voices. Their gazes were cast towards the top of the mountain, and their greed was extremely strong. Indestructible battle soul? Lu Ming's heart stirred as he fell into deep thought. All of you, come with me. Let's charge again. At this moment, the red-robed old man scanned his surroundings with a gaze as cold as lightning. Senior Red Devil, we can join hands, but let's make this clear first. Once we reach the top of the mountain, we will also have a share of the treasures above. A middle-aged man said. Oh. Is that so? The red-robed old man smiled, looking very amiable. However, in the next moment, his eyes flashed with killing intent. His figure turned into a red light and suddenly pounced towards the middle-aged man. His speed was so fast that the middle-aged man couldn't even react. Slash. Blood splashed everywhere, and a horrible shriek spread in the air. The red-robed old man's claws had already pierced through the middle-aged man's head and twisted it off. Slash, slash, slash. The sound of people taking deep breaths spread in the air. They were all terrified. You're overestimating yourself. You want to negotiate with me? Now, if I tell you to attack, do you understand? Said the red-robed old man ferociously. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he glanced at everyone. Lu Ming and Ling Yue's expressions didn't change, but the others looked terrified. Only the red-robed old man had the strength of the 7th godly emperor layer. He couldn't compete with the red-robed old man. Even though there were a few cultivators of the 6th godly emperor layer, the difference between the 6th and 7th godly emperor layer was too great. Hurry up and come here. Let's attack together. Shouted the red-robed old man coldly. The others had no choice but to move closer to the red-robed old man. They planned to attack together with him. However, Lu Ming and Ling Yue didn't move. You too, you want to die? The red-robed old man glanced at Lu Ming and Ling Yue. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Even though he didn't care about Lu Ming and Ling Yue's cultivation levels, he didn't think that Ling Yue and Lu Ming could help him. However, the two of them had ignored his orders, which made him very unhappy. He had to make an example out of them. You don't have the right to order us, said Ling Yue indifferently. What? I don't have the right? Ha ha ha. The red-robed old man burst into laughter. Tears were about to come out of his eyes. A small shrimp of the 1st godly emperor layer said that he didn't have the right to order them. What a joke. You overestimate yourself. You, go and kill him. The red-robed old man pointed at a cultivator of the third godly emperor layer. Yes. That cultivator of the third godly emperor layer accepted the order and rushed towards Ling Yue. However, the moment he rushed out, Lu Ming also moved. He stepped out and faced that person. Little boy, you're just a quasi-emperor layer cultivator and you want to save the beauty? You overestimate yourself. Die. The cultivator of the third godly emperor layer smiled ferociously and slashed at Lu Ming with his blade. It was as if he could already see Lu Ming being cut in half. Clang. Lu Ming slashed out with his palm, facing that person's blade. This time, everyone laughed. A quasi-emperor layer cultivator actually wanted to use his bare hands to block the blade of a cultivator of the third godly emperor layer. Was he crazy? But in the next moment, everyone's smiles froze on their faces. Chapter 3879. Clang. Lu Ming's hand collided with the blade of the third godly emperor layer. The sound of porcelain breaking spread in the air. The surface of the saber was covered with fine cracks. With a bang, it exploded into pieces. Not only his saber, but his entire body was also filled with cracks. Ah! That person let out a cry of despair, and then his entire body exploded, turning into pieces, completely dead. Everyone else at the scene was dumbfounded. A cultivator of the third godly emperor layer had been killed by a quasi-emperor. What was going on? This was beyond their understanding. The eyes of the old red-robed man widened too. So, it's two demonic geniuses. The old man in the red robe said coldly. Then, a ferocious look appeared on his face. I know you're from a big clan, but this is the chaotic devil Starfield. Even if you're a tiger, you'll still have to lie down. If you disobey me, you'll die. Boom. The red-robed old man's body erupted with a powerful aura. It was as if he could topple mountains and trample the seas as he pressed towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. He wanted to personally take action and deal with Lu Ming and Ling Yue. But at this time, Ling Yue took out the Elven King's bow that was stained with blood, and a towering tree appeared behind her. Endless energy poured into her body, and with a pull of the bowstring, an emerald green arrow appeared, aimed at the red-robed elder. The figure of the old man in the red robe instantly tensed, as if a terrifying presence was staring at him. Ling Yue's arrow brought him a strong sense of danger. His figure could not help but stop, and his eyes rolled around a few times. As expected, the younger generation will surpass us in time. Forget it, this old man is already so old, I won't lower myself to your level. Do as you please. The rest of you, charge with this old man. The red-robed old man laughed and found himself a way out. Facing Ling Yue, he wasn't confident, so he decided to give up. The others did not dare to disobey the red-robed old man's orders. They followed the red-robed old man and rushed towards the mountain peak. Lu Ming and Ling Yue stared at the mountain peak, wanting to see what would happen. The red-robed elder and the others were very cautious. They rushed to the top of the mountain at an astonishing speed. However, when they flew into the mountain range, the motionless corpses suddenly glowed with a dim light. Fight, fight, fight. Kill, kill, kill. Terrifying battle cries reverberated throughout heaven and earth. It was as if there were thousands of soldiers and horses. Then, shadows rushed out from those mummified corpses. These shadows were the undying fighting souls left behind by the top powers. They seemed to be guarding this place. Once there was an invasion, these undying fighting souls would be activated. At that instant, at least a few hundred battle spirits charged toward the red-robed old man and his crew, surrounding them and attacking them fiercely. These fighting souls were extremely powerful. Those who were not strong enough were killed immediately. The red-robed elder roared angrily. His aura went berserk and his divine power surged as he launched a counterattack. However, his attack did not seem to have much effect on the fighting souls. The fighting souls only flashed a few times before they continued to pounce on the red-robed elder and the rest as if nothing had happened. In the end, other than the red-robed elder, the others were injured. They coughed up blood and retreated. Even the red-robed elder could not withstand it. He charged forward with all his might. However, an even more terrifying fighting soul appeared, causing the red-robed elder to turn pale with fright. He quickly retreated out of the range of the mountain. After they left the range of the mountain, the undying fighting souls turned into rays of dim light and disappeared into the bodies of the mummified corpses. What a terrifying undying fighting soul. Its strength is extremely shocking. Ling Yue whispered with a grave expression. Through the short exchange earlier, they could see that the fighting souls were extremely powerful. It seemed that the closer they got to the mountain, the more terrifying the fighting souls were. On the surface, there were countless mummified corpses sitting cross-legged. How many terrifying fighting souls were there? Especially when looking from afar, they could see some figures sitting cross-legged at the top of the mountain. How terrifying were those? Obviously, the others had thought of this as well. Damn it, there are treasures but we can't get them. Someone sighed. There was a treasure mountain in front of them, but they could not take it. They felt terrible. A group of people surrounded the mountain peak, staring at the treasure light emitted from the top of the mountain. However, at this moment, Lu Ming and Ling Yue felt that the life spirit origin stone fragments in their bodies were trembling more and more violently, as if they were about to break out of their bodies and fly out. It was as if there was something outside that had a strong attraction to them. Treasures, they are all treasures. Lu Ming, these undying fighting souls are all treasures. The life spirit origin stone spirit shouted. Of course, only Lu Ming could hear it. These undying fighting souls are all treasures? What kind of treasure is this? Lu Ming asked in surprise. Using the life spirit origin stone fragments, you can store these undying fighting souls for your use. You must know that the life spirit origin stone is one of the 4 great treasures of the life spirit heavenly court. Each of them has a special effect. The life spirit origin stone can be said to be the symbol of the life spirit heavenly court. These undying fighting souls left behind by the experts of the life spirit heavenly court can be stored within. The more life spirit origin stone fragments you have, the more you can store. The life spirit origin stone spirit explained. Lu Ming's eyes lit up and his heart thumped. Even his breathing became hurried. The life spirit origin stone fragments could actually absorb those undying fighting souls. Lu Ming had seen the power of the undying fighting souls just now. The red-robed elder and the others had only just rushed to the mountain peak and were already injured by the undying fighting souls. They had not even rushed far. As they went further, the strength of the undying fighting souls was even more terrifying. If he could take these undying fighting souls into his bag, how strong would his fighting strength be? How can I absorb those undying fighting souls? Lu Ming asked. It's very simple. As long as you hold the life spirit origin stone fragments in your hand and inject your strength into it, when you get close to the undying fighting souls, you will be able to absorb them. Those undying fighting souls will definitely not resist. The life spirit origin stone spirit said. All right. Lu Ming nodded his head and looked at Ling Yue. He also happened to see Ling Yue looking at him. He knew that Ling Yue would definitely know of this secret as well. Her stone spirit would definitely tell him as well. Make your move. Lu Ming sent a sound transmission to Ling Yue. Ling Yue nodded. Following that, the two of them flashed and suddenly rushed towards the mountain peak. When the red-robed elder and the others saw Lu Ming and Ling Yue rushing towards the mountain peak, no one stopped them. Instead, they gloated. You really overestimate yourself. Do you think you can rush over just because you have some strength? I think he's too confident. When he's surrounded by those undying fighting souls, he'll have something to cry about. Hee hee, it's best to die on the front. Chapter 3880. When the red-robed elder and the others saw Lu Ming and Ling Yue rushing towards the mountain peak, they couldn't help but mock and ridicule them. But very quickly, they shut their mouths, their faces filled with astonishment. When Lu Ming and Ling Yue rushed into the range of the mountain peak, a dim light appeared on the bodies of the mummies, just like before. Then, one by one, the undying battle souls rushed out and pounced towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. At this time, a crystal appeared in Lu Ming and Ling Yue's hands. Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment. When the few undying battle souls approached Lu Ming, they immediately stopped. One could clearly see that the undying battle soul's face revealed a comfortable and respectful expression. Then, it turned into a ray of light and rushed into the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment, disappearing without a trace. Lu Ming could vaguely feel that there was something extra in the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment. On the other side, Ling Yue was the same. The few undying battle souls that were close to her directly charged into her Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment. This, the red-robed elder and the others widened their eyes in disbelief. What are the crystals in their hands? Why can they absorb the undying battle soul? Those undying battle souls have been absorbed. Could it be that they can use them? Could that be the legendary Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment? A voice came out from the crowd, causing everyone's hearts to tremble violently. In unison, everyone's eyes were fixed on the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment in Lu Ming and Ling Yue's hands. Many people had heard of the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment, but they had never seen it before. Hearing this, they couldn't help but let their imaginations run wild. Why would the Bing Xian Life Spirit Hall suddenly appear? Why could the crystals in Lu Ming and Ling Yue's hands make those undying battle souls reveal expressions of comfort and reverence? Perhaps it really was a fragment of the Life Spirit Origin Stone. Legend had it that the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment was the key to finding the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. Their eyes were burning with greed. If they could snatch the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment, would they have the chance to find the Life Spirit Heavenly Court and obtain the inheritance of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court? Thinking of this, everyone's eyes turned red. The Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment is mine. Since I've met her, she's destined to be mine. Roars rang out one after another. Everyone charged towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue in a frenzy. You're courting death. Scram! The red-robed old man shouted coldly. Dazzling red light burst out like sharp swords, piercing through the sky. The bodies of those who were pierced directly exploded, and they died on the spot. The others were shocked and distanced themselves from the red-robed elder. However, they did not want to give up on the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment and continued to charge towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Go up! Lu Ming shouted softly and rushed towards the top of the mountain, with Ling Yue following closely behind. On the side, those undying battle souls could not affect Lu Ming and Ling Yue at all. Some of those who rushed over stopped in fear, and some directly rushed into the fragments of the Life Spirit Origin Stone. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had rushed out tens of thousands of meters. When the red-robed old man and the others rushed into the range of the mountain, those undying battle souls crazily rushed towards them. The red-robed old man and the others couldn't resist at all and could only retreat. Some of them stayed on the mountain forever. Damn it, let's see how long you can stay here. When you come down the mountain, it will be your death. The red-robed old man roared angrily, his killing intent as cold as a blade. Lu Ming and Ling Yue smiled faintly. To be honest, they did not put the red-robed old man in their eyes at all. Although the red-robed old man was strong, they both had great killing weapons. With their great killing weapons and the two of them working together, how could they be afraid of the red-robed old man? The two of them focused their minds, holding the fragments of the Life Spirit Origin Stone in their hands, and charged towards the undying battle souls. As long as those undying battle souls were within 10 meters of the Life Spirit Origin Stone Fragment, regardless of their cultivation level, they would rush into the fragment. In just a few minutes, Lu Ming had already collected over 100 undying battle souls. This caused the red-robed old man and the others to be extremely envious. Swoosh! At that moment, there was a ray of blood light in the distance. It was rushing towards them at an alarming speed. In the next instant, the blood light receded, revealing a young man's figure. Xiao Wuji. Lu Ming's gaze swept across and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The person who had come was Xiao Wuji. The current Xiao Wuji was covered in a layer of blood light. His appearance had also changed a lot from before. In the past, he had 3 heads and 6 arms. Now, he was no different from a human. He only had 1 head and 2 arms. The only difference was that there was an additional eye between his eyebrows. He was somewhat similar to the 3-eyed race. His aura was also much more violent than before. He had already reached the first Heaven God Emperor realm. He also saw Lu Ming and Ling Yue on the mountain peak. You are courting death. The undying battle souls are mine. Seeing that Lu Ming and Ling Yue were collecting the undying battle souls, Xiao Wuji roared angrily. His terrifying killing intent exploded as he charged towards the mountain peak. The red-robed old man and the others were blocking his path. Get out of my way! Shouted Xiao Wuji to the red-robed old man and the others. The red-robed old man and the others were infuriated. Originally, they had treasures but could not obtain them. They could only watch as Lu Ming and Ling Yue collected the undying fighting soul on the mountain. These people were extremely unhappy. Now, a young man had appeared and dared to talk to them like that. They were even more furious. Where did this little bastard come from? How dare you act so arrogantly? I'll kill you! Shouted an old man of the 3rd Heaven God Emperor realm furiously. He looked ferocious as he threw a punch at Xiao Wuji. His punch whistled through the air like a small mountain, oppressing Xiao Wuji. Die! Xiao Wuji's murderous intent was like a vast ocean. With a roar, the bloody glow in his hand condensed into a long sword, which he slashed out. Slash! The old man of the 3rd Heaven God Emperor realm's punch was immediately cut in half. The sword light didn't stop and continued cutting the old man apart. The old man of the 3rd Heaven God Emperor realm didn't even have time to scream before he was killed. The others were astonished. Another incredible cultivator, just like Lu Ming, had killed a cultivator of the 3rd Heaven God Emperor realm in one attack. How come there were so many incredible cultivators today? Is that the strength of the Azura blood Azura? Whispered Ling Yue at the top of the mountain. Looking at Xiao Wuji's condition, he had probably succeeded and become a Azura blood Azura. Die, die, die. Xiao Wuji's killing intent was too strong. After killing one person, his killing intent became even stronger. He let out a roar, waved his blood sword, and charged towards the crowd. Sword lights flashed and a few more people were killed. Shit, that little boy is insane. Kill him! Shouted a few cultivators of the 5th and 6th Heaven God Emperor realm furiously. They released their godly strength and threw themselves at Xiao Wuji. The moment someone like this made a move, it was extremely terrifying. Xiao Wuji felt a deadly sense of danger. However, in the face of danger, Xiao Wuji revealed an excited expression. The blood sword in his hand disappeared and was replaced by a broken sword. It was only half of the Azura Emperor sword. Chapter 3881. Xiao Wuji's eyes were bloodshot and filled with killing intent. The Azura clan had always been a bloodthirsty clan. After he had transformed into the blood Azura, his killing intent had grown even stronger. Kill! 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 Xiao Wu roared, the broken Azura Emperor sword in his hand slashed out. This half of the Azura Emperor sword was a terrifying killing weapon. It was the same as the blood-stained elf King Biyao in Ling Yue's hand. Instantly, the sword light exploded. The terrifying sword light split open the universe, breaking through all attacks and defenses, and slashing those experts. Ah! Horrible shrieks spread in the air. No matter if it was cultivators of the 5th or 6th godly emperor layer, they couldn't resist the Azura Emperor Sword's attacks. Their bodies were cut in two, and their lives were destroyed. In an instant, more than 10 experts were killed by Xiao Wuji. The remaining people were almost scared to death as they frantically retreated. Kill! Xiao Wuji's killing intent soared to the heavens. He did not want to let these people go, so he continued to attack them. It's your honor to pay tribute to my power of blood Shura. Die! Xiao Wuji's cold voice spread out in all directions. His sword continued to slash out, and several more experts were killed by him. Finally, he charged towards the red-robed elder. Boom! The red-robed old man attacked with all his strength and clashed with the red-robed old man's attack. An intense explosion rang out, and the red-robed old man was sent flying backwards. A bloody wound had appeared on his palm. However, Limitless Xiao was also blocked by him. He also retreated a few steps. The red-robed elder's expression was extremely solemn, with a faint trace of shock. Clearly, he was stunned by Xiao Wuji's strength. Die, old man. Limitless Xiao was blocked by the red-robed old man, which aroused his killing intent. He wanted to kill the red-robed old man, but the red-robed old man didn't want to fight with him. He turned and ran. Although Limitless Xiao's killing intent was heavy, he did not lose his mind. Seeing the red-robed old man run away, he stopped and did not pursue. After all, his goal was this mountain peak, the undying battle soul, and Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei. Now, it's your turn, said Limitless Xiao while looking at Ling Yuwei and Lu Ming. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He jumped up and ran towards the mountain peak. He also had fragments of the Soul Vitality Stone in his hand. The undying battle soul were also absorbed by the fragments of the Vitality Spirit. His speed was very fast and unimpeded as he continuously approached Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei. When the distance between the two was within 10,000 meters, the half of the Azura Emperor sword in his hand slashed towards the two of them. The mighty sword light slashed towards the two of them with earth-shattering power. Lu Ming took out the Gale Pearl while Ling Yuwei took out the Elf King Bao that was stained with blood, preparing to fight back. However, the mountain peak was filled with undying fighting souls. Xiao Wuji's sword radiance did not fly far before it was blocked by many fighting souls. The strength of these war souls was extremely shocking. They easily blocked Xiao Wuji's sword light and were completely fine. If they did not have the Life Spirit Vitality Stone fragments in their hands, they would have been torn into pieces by these undying fighting souls. Humph! Seeing this, Xiao Wuji snorted and continued to charge towards Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei. Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei continued to charge towards the peak of the mountain, collecting undying battle souls along the way. Xiao Wuji tried to deal with Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei, but the moment his attacks flew out, they were blocked by the undying battle souls. There were too many undying battle souls. His attacks could not reach Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei. Damn it! Seeing Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei collecting undying battle souls, Xiao Wuji became anxious. In the end, he stopped attacking Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei and focused on collecting undying battle souls. Lu Ming and Ling Yuwei were so happy that they focused on collecting undying battle souls. The number of undying battle souls on the mountain peak was shocking. There were at least 100,000 of them. The three of them continued to collect, and the number of undying battle souls slowly decreased. In the end, they were too lazy to collect the low-level undying battle souls. They went to the top of the mountain to collect the high-level ones. As they approached the top of the mountain, the number of undying battle souls decreased. However, each one was even more terrifying. The aura of each undying battle soul shocked Lu Ming. It was like the universe, vast and unfathomable. Needless to say, living beings that could form these undying battle souls were definitely terrifying when they were alive. Unfortunately, they all turned into dried corpses in the end. They did not even know how they died. 2 hours later, Lu Ming, Ling Yuwei and Xiao Wuji had each collected at least 20,000 undying battle souls. At this time, Lu Ming had a feeling that the life spirit stone fragment was almost full and could not absorb much more. Lu Ming and the other two rushed to the top of the mountain. At the top of the mountain was a flat land. On the flat land, there were only 8 figures. These were 8 creatures of different forms, forming a circle. Similarly, these 8 creatures had all turned into dried corpses, without the slightest bit of aura. However, the gazes of Lu Ming and the other two directly skipped over the 8 creatures and landed in the middle of them. In the middle of them, there were 2 rays of light that soared into the sky. The multicolored light that could be seen from afar was reflected by these 2 rays of light. The source of the light was 2 divine armaments. A saber and a snow-white staff. The 2 divine armaments emitted an unfathomable aura. Ling Yuwei's eyes lit up. Could this be the 18 divine armaments of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court? Ling Yuwei whispered, her voice trembling. 18 divine armaments? Lu Ming's heart was also beating wildly. He had heard Ling Yuwei mention it before. The 18 divine armaments could be said to be the top treasures of the Life Spirit Heavenly Court. In the entire great desolate universe, they were the top treasures and were priceless. Life Spirit Heavenly Court's 9 Life Spirit Halls, each of which had 2 guardian divine weapons. The 18 divine armaments were 18 different types of weapons. There was a saber and a staff here, and they looked so extraordinary. It was very likely that they were 2 of the 18 divine armaments. The 18 divine armaments are mine. Xiao Wuji's eyes shone with a fiery light. In a flash, he pounced towards the 2 divine armaments. However, the bodies of the 8 creatures emitted a dim light. Then, 8 undying fighting souls appeared. The aura of the 8 undying fighting souls was extremely terrifying. It was simply earth-shattering. Just a wisp of aura was emitted, but Lu Ming and the other 2 felt like they were being pressed down by hundreds of planets. They almost vomited blood. The 3 of them quickly placed the Life Spirit Vitality Stone fragments in front of them. They continuously channeled their energy into the Life Spirit Vitality Stone fragments and activated them with all their might. Buzz buzz. The Life Spirit Vitality Stone fragments vibrated violently. Rings of light emanated from them, emitting a mysterious aura. The 8 undying fighting souls scanned the Life Spirit Vitality Stone fragments and revealed puzzled looks. What a familiar feeling. Is it the Life Spirit Vitality Stone? Has the Life Spirit Vitality Stone been shattered? Have we lost? Chapter 3882. The 8 undying fighting souls mumbled. Lu Ming and the other 2 were shocked. Could it be that the 8 undying fighting souls still retained their intelligence? This was unbelievable. The 8 of them had been dead for a long time. If they still retained their intelligence, it meant that they were immortal. No, their eyes are empty. They don't seem to have any intelligence. Lu Ming said. Indeed, the 8 undying fighting souls had empty eyes. They were no different from the previous undying fighting souls. Maybe the 8 of them were too strong when they were alive. After they died, they formed the undying fighting souls and retained some of their instincts. Ling Yue said. Lu Ming nodded his head. That was probably the case. The eyes of the 8 undying fighting souls were empty. They did not seem to have any spiritual intelligence or memories. The murmurs that they were muttering were probably instinctive. It was an instinct after seeing the Vitality Stone fragments. Collect the 8 undying fighting souls. A voice was roaring in Lu Ming's heart. These 8 undying fighting souls were absolutely terrifying, and their strength was out of this world. If he could collect them and use them for himself, they would be a great help to him. Bam! Lu Ming stepped forward and walked towards one of the undying fighting souls. The undying fighting soul did not move and did not attack Lu Ming. Lu Ming was relieved. Originally, he was still nervous. After all, the 8 undying fighting souls were too powerful and he was not confident. Now that he was confident, he increased his speed and approached the undying fighting soul. Seeing this, Ling Yue and Xiao Wuji carried the vitality stone fragments and approached one of the undying fighting souls. Very quickly, Lu Ming was within 10 meters of the undying fighting soul. Buzz! The vitality stone fragments in Lu Ming's hand vibrated violently and emitted a strong suction force, trying to suck in the undying fighting soul. However, there was a resistance from the undying fighting soul, as if it did not want to go in. It wanted to break free from the suction force of the vitality stone fragments. Similarly, Ling Yue and Xiao Wuji were in the same situation. The undying fighting soul was resisting them. "Get in here!" Lu Ming shouted in his heart. At the same time, he continuously infused forbidden energy into the life spirit stone. The attraction of the life spirit stone fragment suddenly increased. On the undying fighting soul's body, a dim light flickered and flickered continuously. It seemed that it could not resist the attraction of the life spirit meta stone fragment, and its body was drawn closer and closer to the fragment. About a minute later, with a swoosh, the undying fighting soul turned into a ray of light and flew into the life spirit stone fragment. It was successfully collected by the life spirit stone fragment. Lu Ming was the first to succeed. After Lu Ming succeeded, about half a minute had passed. Xiao Wuji had also succeeded, and after another half a minute, Ling Yue had succeeded. At this point, Lu Ming had already collected 2 undying fighting souls. In the end, Lu Ming collected 3 undying battle souls, Xiao Wuji also collected 3, and Ling Yue collected 2. The 8 undying fighting souls were divided among the 3 of them. Damn it! Xiao Wuji's eyes were cold as he stared at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's speed of collecting undying fighting souls was actually faster than his, which made him extremely unhappy. "Now, without the undying fighting souls, let's see how you will die." Xiao Wuji's cold eyes stared at Lu Ming and Ling Yue. On the mountain peak, there were still many undying fighting souls that had not been collected by them. However, this was the peak of the mountain. The undying fighting souls on the mountainside were wandering around and did not come up. Therefore, the peak of the mountain was very spacious. "Xiao Wuji, don't think that we are afraid of you." Ling Yue held the Elf King Bao in her hand and was very confident. She was not afraid of Xiao Wuji. "Kill!" Xiao Wuji shouted and attacked directly. Holding the half of the Azura Emperor sword, his body was covered in a dazzling bloody light. This was the power of the blood Azura. Xiao Wuji released the power of the blood Azura and resonated with the Azura Emperor sword. Wang! The half of the Azura Emperor sword vibrated and sword chi whistled, piercing through the clouds. A few terrifying sword lights slashed towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Whoosh! Ling Yue drew her bow and an arrow. A towering tree appeared behind her. Endless energy was injected into her body. On the Elf King Bao, an arrow condensed and flew out, piercing through the void. Boom! The arrow and the sword light collided, exploding into a shocking explosion. The arrow and the sword light shook continuously and finally both disappeared. Lu Ming also drew out the energy from the Gale Pearl. The gale whistled and collided with the sword light that was slashing towards him. In the end, he successfully blocked it. What a strong power! Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. Xiao Wuji's sword light combined with the half of the Azura Emperor sword was shockingly powerful. Both he and Ling Yue used their killing weapons to barely block it. Looks like Xiao Wuji has really evolved into a blood Azura. The power of the blood Azura complements the half of the Azura Emperor sword, allowing it to better display the power of the half of the Azura Emperor sword. Ling Yue said. Her delicate little face was also filled with seriousness. Xiao Wuji's strength was already monstrous. Now that he had turned into a blood Azura, he was undoubtedly even more terrifying. In the entire desolate universe, there were probably not many people who were a match for Xiao Wuji. Moreover, the power of the blood Azura could better activate the half of the Azura Emperor sword, making his strength even stronger. Kill! Kill! Kill. Seeing that he had not killed Lu Ming and Ling Yue, Xiao Wuji's killing intent became even stronger. He kept roaring and slashed out with the half of the Azura Emperor sword. The dense sword light slashed towards Lu Ming and Ling Yue. Lu Ming and Ling Yue also activated their killing weapons to fight against the other party. The peak of the mountain trembled violently. However, this mountain was extraordinary. The intense battle between the three of them did not cause the slightest bit of damage to the mountain. The two weapons floated there quietly, emitting a treasure light. They were not affected at all. In the blink of an eye, the three of them had exchanged dozens of blows. The battle became more and more intense. The three of them activated their killing weapons to the extreme. In the end, the three killing weapons changed. First, Xiao Wuji's half of the Azura Emperor sword roared and turned into an Azura king with 99 heads and 999 arms. It charged through the air. The elf king Bao in Ling Yue's hand also turned into an elf king in a dazzling light and went forward. At the same time, the Zephyr Pearl in Lu Ming's hand also turned into a figure. It was the figure of the owner of the Zephyr Pearl that Lu Ming had seen before. It had an impression of the Azura king and was fighting with each other. When the three killing weapons were activated to the extreme, they revealed their figures and fought with each other. Without external help, let's see how you die. Xiao Wuji let out a long roar. His long hair flew in the wind and blood radiance filled the air. A blood sword condensed in his hand. In a flash, he appeared in front of Lu Ming and slashed at Lu Ming. Chapter 3883. Xiao Wuji slashed at Lu Ming with his sword. Even though he only had the strength of the first godly emperor layer, his attack was terrifyingly powerful. His attack caused the air to explode. Sword chi whistled through the air and blood chi filled the air. A terrifying pressure pressed down on Lu Ming. Danger. Extremely dangerous. That attack was fatal to Lu Ming. Lu Ming instantly activated the battle word art. His fighting strength increased by 5 times. Every cell in his body trembled as he used all his ordinary secret skills. Of course, these secret skills were hidden. A layer of light appeared around his body. This light was made up of all sorts of defensive secret skills. A layer of light also appeared on his hands. It was made up of all sorts of offensive secret skills. At the same time, Lu Ming used the Great Godly Wind technique and the Great Shattering technique to throw out 2 punches. Boom boom. Lu Ming's fists collided with Xiao Wuji's blood sword. There was an earth-shattering explosion. A terrifying force swept out in all directions and swallowed everything. In the next instant, a figure was pushed back. That figure was Lu Ming. His fists continued to explode. A terrifying sword chi broke through his secret skills and tried to tear his body apart. In the end, Lu Ming managed to block it. However, Lu Ming was pushed back 10,000 meters. There were 2 deep cuts on his fists. His fists had almost been torn apart. What a terrifying force. Lu Ming's expression was grave and he was secretly shocked. Xiao Wuji's strength was monstrous. He was definitely the most monstrous among all the geniuses he had met. In the previous exchange, Xiao Wuji's strength had torn apart all his defenses and almost split his fists apart. Even the taboo power had been torn apart by it. It didn't mean that his forbidden strength was weaker than Xiao Wuji's. It was just that Lu Ming's cultivation was much weaker than Xiao Wuji's. A quasi-emperor and a godly emperor were on 2 completely different levels. Furthermore, Xiao Wuji's blood Shura strength was also a terrifying force. It was normal for Xiao Wuji to be able to break through his forbidden strength. If the quality was good, it had to be sufficient. If the quantity was insufficient, it would be useless. What he didn't know was that Xiao Wuji was even more shocked and unable to accept it. How is this possible? How can a mere quasi-emperor block my attack and not die? How can a quasi-emperor block my attack? Xiao Wuji was in disbelief and could not accept it. Ever since he had evolved into Blood Shura, he had believed that there were only a handful of people of the same level in the desolate universe who could fight him, even among the top 10 tribes. Not to mention those whose cultivation levels were lower. Xiao Wuji's cultivation. Wuji's Shura Ji. There was such a huge difference between their cultivation bases, but Lin Fan was still able to block his attack. Although he had the upper hand, he still couldn't accept it. This was a huge blow to his belief of being invincible. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Kid, go to hell. Go to hell. Xiao Wuji roared crazily. His Blood Shura strength was unleashed to the extreme. With a swoosh, he turned into a blood-red sword light and slashed at Lu Ming again. This time, it was even stronger than before. But at this moment, Ling Yue had already made her move. She used all her strength and shot an arrow. The arrow pierced through the air. It was terrifying as it flew towards Xiao Wuji's face. Ling Yue was also a monstrous genius. After breaking through to the godly emperor realm, her strength was also very shocking. She was enough to pose a fatal threat to Xiao Wuji. Therefore, he could only stop and wave his sword to block Ling Yue's attack. With a clang, Ling Yue's arrow was sent flying by him. With this block, Lu Ming had recovered. The wound on his fist had already recovered. At the same time, through his continuous efforts, he had finally triggered the battle character incantation to increase his combat strength by 6 times. After triggering 6 times of combat strength, Lu Ming's strength was at its peak. Boom! 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 Lu Ming continued to throw punches. The void was destroyed. A terrifying fist energy was sent towards Xiao Wuji. I am the Blood Shura. I am invincible among those of the same level. Die, brat! Xiao Wuji roared and slashed with his sword. The sharp sword light easily sliced apart Lu Ming's fist energy. Even though Lu Ming had triggered the battle character incantation to increase his combat strength by 6 times, he was still no match for Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji was truly terrifying. Among those of the same level, he was already standing at the peak of the primitive universe. Even among the top 10 races, there were not many who could match up to Xiao Wuji. Such an existence was truly terrifying. It was too difficult for Lu Ming to cross realms to fight. The difference between a quasi-emperor and a godly emperor was too great. Under the circumstances where one's cultivation was so far behind, it was normal for one to lose. Fortunately, with Ling Yue's help, Ling Yue continued to draw her bow and shoot arrows at Xiao Wuji. However, Ling Yue was also no match for Xiao Wuji. Ling Yue and Xiao Wuji were of the same level. In the past, Ling Yue was slightly behind her opponent. After her opponent turned into a Blood Shura, she was even weaker. Xiao Wuji continued to attack, breaking apart Lu Ming and Ling Yue's attacks. He kept getting closer to Lu Ming. Brat, no one can save you today. Die! Xiao Wuji roared. His killing intent was at its peak. He wanted to kill Lu Ming. It was because of jealousy. Lu Ming was able to fight against him at the quasi-emperor level. He was too monstrous. If Lu Ming broke through to the godly emperor level, he would definitely be stronger than him. He would not allow such an existence to appear. He wanted to kill him in the cradle. Lu Ming's existence was a huge blow to his invincible belief. You want to kill me? I'm going to disappoint you. I was just testing the strength of your Blood Shura. I'm not going to play with you anymore, said Lu Ming indifferently. Then, Qiu continued to wriggle on his wrist and turned into an armor. Lu Ming also had Qiu apart from the Zephyr Pearl. Qiu had already broken through to the 3rd godly emperor layer. After turning into a silver spear, it was terrifyingly strong. Even if Xiao Wuji was incredible, Qiu could still defeat him. A silver spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Whoosh! The spear shook violently and collided with Xiao Wuji's blood-red sword. There was an explosion. Xiao Wuji's blood-red sword was shaking violently. Great godly wind technique, great destruction technique. Lu Ming threw a punch with his left hand. Two deadly attacks turned into a hurricane and swept towards Xiao Wuji. Xiao Wuji's body shook violently. The blood shura protecting his body shook violently. Lu Ming's strength penetrated into his body. Xiao Wuji was pushed back and his face turned pale. Lu Ming didn't give him any time to breathe. His silver spear stabbed again. At the same time, his left hand also attacked. Ling Yue also seized the opportunity and shot an arrow with all her strength. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.